We have Bob Perry here on the end, myself, Michael Fortune, the chair. We have our vice chair, Brian Marble, that is in via Zoom. And we have Tyler Riggs, commission member, here to my left. I believe Joe Chambers is still en route. I think he was going to be here tonight. So we'll see. Okay. I didn't hear anything otherwise. If you would join us, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll lead us on that. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item of business that we have is the approval of minutes. I know we had some corrections to be made for the 4/27 meeting, and then also for the minutes of 5/11. So have you guys had a chance to look at those? Is there anything you see missing?
I don't have anything.
Okay, there's Joe. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, the 5/11 minutes look good to me, and goes good with the corrected minutes. 4/27 as well. So I would make a motion to approve both sets of minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve both sets of minutes. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Bob Perry. Motion by Tyler Riggs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion for approval of the minutes passes. And we will move on to our public comments. Now, this particular time in the meeting tonight is for individuals that have something they'd like to speak about in general to the Planning Commission. If you are here for a specific item on the Planning Commission agenda, then I'd ask you to wait, and we will have to take comments at that point as we get to that. But if there is some that would like to speak, this is the opportunity for the public to share thoughts and ideas with the Planning Commission. We'll give them just a minute over there. Okay, we have a few people that desire to make comments during the public hearing. Are those that have signed up for it, is it specific to an agenda item, or is there anything anybody would like to stand up and speak to the Planning Commission on any other matter besides the things on the agenda? Okay. If there is anything, are there any comments?
No, there are not.
No comments related to general discussions?
Not on the Providence City, Utah Gmail. No.
Okay, all right. Then I will go ahead and close that portion of the meeting, the public comments meeting. We will close that. And now we will open it up, the public hearing. The public hearing today is for the purpose of a partial rezone of parcel 030020007. The Providence City Planning Commission will take comments and questions regarding an application to rezone a section of parcel 030020007, generally located at 420 South State Road 165. The applicant seeks to rezone a section of the parcel from commercial highway to multifamily high. So that's what we're going to talk about and open it up for comments. What we would invite you to do is we call your names. We will go through it in order of the list of individuals that signed up to speak. And so we will start. We'll ask you to come up, state your name at the microphone, and then we will listen to your comments. First, we have Matthew Hedelius.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. As I've thought about this for several months and really the last handful of years, as I've watched what's going on in the area with the high density housing, I've had a number of concerns. One of the first concerns is a safety issue of individuals who reside in those high density areas. I don't know the exact number of units that are just to the south of us here, but one of the first days that I thought I would drive through that development just to see what was going on, because I have concern about safety, and I thought, what if children run out here in the middle of these driveway areas? And as I was driving through, two children, probably 5 years of age and younger, maybe 3 and 5 years of age, ran right out in front of me. And gratefully, I was an experienced driver and I was paying attention, going maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour, and stopped. But my concern is we have families moving into there that many are newlyweds and you're not married, and it's affordable housing. Within a short period of time, those families will be having children, and those children will grow up, and they will be 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and they'll need places to play. And they will be out there on the grass, what grass there is not very much, but they'll be out there in the driveways. And I think that we run a great risk of bringing havoc and trauma to those families and risking the lives of small children. I also have been there, have a daughter who rents one of those areas, and I've seen what the parking lot is like. And there's very little parking space. I've also seen the speed of which some people travel through there. And I really believe that it's a matter of time before we see some real problems there with that. So that's the first item. The second item, as we look at research, and I realize that there's research on both sides of the aisle here. There's certainly research that shows that mixing residential and high density housing brings crime rates down per capita. It doesn't bring crime down, it just brings crime rates per capita. But there's several other studies that show that as you develop high density housing, regardless of the location in the country, the crime rates go up. Now, the thing about that is that the crime does not discriminate against the state, against the city. Crime rates go up. New York, crime rates will be higher than Providence, Utah, but the crime rates go up, including violent crime, murder, and rape. And those are identified in the research that's there. As I think about, I live in the Meadow Lane subdivision, I've been there just about 20 years. And many people like myself, we put our life savings in there 20 years ago to get in a home, and have planned on that being the place that we would raise our families, which many of us have, and now on to grandchildren. And I think we never would have purchased there had we thought that Margie Lowe's property, where she was mowing the lawn for 20 years by herself down there, would have turned into what it's turning into now. And the question I have is, how many of the developers that are building these high density homes, how many of them live in this area? I would dare to say none do. How many of those who were maybe in the middle transactions selling it to developers to raise high density housing, how many of them are employed by the city or live even within a mile radius? I bet the answer is slim. I also wonder, when we look at the fee that Providence City gets per water hookup, where's the checks and balance that exists that encourages Providence City to be prudent in thinking about crime rate and thinking about safety? We have in this high density housing just south of us more families living there than in a major portion of Providence City. Now, I will close with this. And I have many concerns, but this is probably one of the highest concerns I have, and it has to do with part of my expertise. By profession, I'm a doctor of psychology, and I specialize in sexual crimes and problematic sexual behavior. Research shows, and I can guarantee you from personal experience, that the rate of voyeurism is window peeking and looking on an unsuspected person for sexual reasons. Voyeurism will increase significantly as you create more and more, as we allow more and more high density housing to be created. These units are a breeding ground for that behavior. Blinds are open. A young girl is in her bedroom, a little naive. It's nighttime. She can't see out because it's light inside, dark outside. But it doesn't take too long for a married man, a college man, a married woman, whomever, to realize that every night at about 10:30, she gets undressed. And about half the time, her blinds are open. We're going to see more crimes like this. But what's even more concerning is that most voyeuristic acts that are illegal go unreported because the victim never knows that he or she was violated. And so I think that the risk of the safety of the people of Providence is significant as we allow these things to come into play, not to mention the traffic problems that will be developed right here. But I say these things about the sexual issues on a weekly basis. I evaluate people from around the country, sometimes from around the world, that have been convicted of or engaged in these type of crimes. And I can tell you, they don't discriminate where they go, where they are. They don't discriminate on the type of high density housing or the age. They engage in those crimes because it's an illness, it's a sickness. But I think there's no reason why we have to create a very fertile ground for that type of behavior here in Providence. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing I needed to say, thank you for sharing the comments, and I appreciate that. One thing I did want to say that I failed to mention at first is we have a set amount of time by our bylaws and so forth for taking comments. Certainly we want to be able to hear as much as we can. So one of the things that is asked of us is that we limit those comments to about 5 minutes. So 5 minutes or less, if you can help me with that. That way we won't have to cut it off after so much time. But next, I have Rick and Craig, but Chaplain, but would you guys?
We'll just have Craig speak.
Okay, just wait until we actually go forward with this.
Okay.
Is that all right? Unless you have a desire to make comments right now. What we typically would do is listen to the public comments, let them take those, and then we would certainly give you an opportunity to speak about it, or we can close those. We may have some questions that follow up. We close that section, the public comments of the public hearing, then move to our action items and begin to deal with it there. And then that's where we have you guys up and a little more active, and possibly some comments again from the public. Okay, so I'll hold those and hopefully not forget you. Mike Simadini.
That's Mike Simadini. I live at 534 Garden Drive here in Providence. And I am in strong opposition to rezoning. My understanding is you guys are here to serve the public and the voice of the public. We've recently had a vote on high density housing, and the citizens of Providence rejected it by 85%. 81%.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge. And so I would hope that you'd listen to the citizens of Providence and reject this rezoning. One of the arguments is it's supposed to be affordable housing. to bring the citizens of Providence back so they can live in here, it's obvious that the people who actually live here don't feel that way. And so my request is remind yourselves of the vote that we just had and reject this rezoning.
Thank you.
I'll make just a comment real quick.
Yes, just one second. There's no clapping in the meeting, please, if you would respect the decorum. Yes, Joe.
I just want the public to know that we're a body that makes a recommendation to the city council. We don't make the decision. So we take the public comment, and I just want you to be aware that we're not going to be making a decision on it. That will eventually go to the city council. That's not our job to make the decision.
So what are we supposed to do in the decision making process?
I don't know that I'm in a position to tell you, but I think the better educated you are, is what I'm trying to do, to be fair to you, so you understand what the process is. I think you have to be here and make the comments. I think the city council will take these comments into consideration. And so I think you have to be here, but I think you also need to go to the city council meeting. I don't know that it will be an open public comment meeting. There are, what's the definition? Public
Hearing.
public hearings, which this is, where the public can comment, and there are public meetings that are just open to the public, but they don't really comment at it. And it's discretionary with the council to do that. But if you don't understand the process, if the public doesn't understand the process, and when I say you, I don't mean you personally.
I guess, so how are we supposed to know how you're going to vote and how you're going to proceed to the city council members and to the mayor?
This body will, assuming they want to proceed forward. I'm not the chairman is, and this body likely will make a recommendation to the city council tonight. You can be here present for that. But I just want you to know it's only a recommendation. For example, if we recommended against it, the city council has full authority to grant it over our recommendation.
We make a recommendation. That's what we vote. When we take a vote on something, it's, will we recommend this? Do we feel this is in accordance with the laws and codes? And do they have the right to do these things? Is this a right thing? We take into consideration the comments of the public and so forth. We make a vote on whether we make a recommendation or not. And then it goes to the city officials, which you elected. We're here on a voluntary basis.
And your comments are important. I don't mean to diminish them by saying that it's a recommendation. I just want you to understand the process. And the state code, the legislature sets forth the process. The public hearing has to occur at this body, and we make a recommendation, but we're not elected officials, we're appointed. And ultimately that decision to do the rezone is made by the elected officials.
So what you're saying is that we're opposed to your city council.
Well, when the city council meet once a month, more than that, if they deem it necessary, the third
Wednesday.
Third Wednesday of
Third
every
Wednesday
month.
at 6 o'clock.
So
So
we are the second and fourth Wednesdays, and they're the third. So certainly this is a great place for the public to come, for us to, I guess we're kind of on the front line. Maybe we take the hits a little more than they do. We get beat up a little bit, or we get cheered on and that kind of stuff. I think it's interesting too, because I don't know how many of you participated in the survey that was done in Providence. It was promoted in the newsletter, and those statistics were done. I don't know if the results have been released or whatever.
we covered them in the last city council meeting as a preliminary. So you can share whatever you like.
Thank you. To me, I think one of the biggest things was there was some confusion to a degree over Proposition 1. Just a quick point, and then I want to get back to public comment. The master plan showed that particular land with the potential to be annexed, and it was shown on the master plan as life cycle residential. Okay, and the first portion of it, was developed and it was annexed in, it was developed. Prop 1, they were going to annex it again. So if it was annexed in at that time, with all the stuff that went back and forth, if it was annexed in at that time, it would have been annexed in under the zoning of life cycle residential. And so
that was high density house.
yeah, and part of that was high density. It is a mixture of housing types so that people can, whether it's starting in an apartment, a townhouse, a house, or whatever, or seniors, that they can move within the community, in the housing community there. So a lot of people thought this is about high density housing. If we vote against Prop 1 or whatever it was, if we're against that, then we're stopping it all in the city of Providence. That was not the case at all. It was specific to that piece of property, to that annexation, which would have brought it in under that code, which would have allowed them to move forward and continue to do what they did before. So just to clarify that, one last comment about it. From the statistics of the survey that was done, I thought it was really interesting. Talk about 81% of the people voted against Prop 1 to stop it. But when we were asked the questions about what do you think about life cycle residential, 38% either agreed with it or liked it, but just not in my area. So 38%. Those who didn't like it in the survey was 39%. Who said, no, I don't want it. 22% were neutral about it, one way or the other. It didn't matter to them. So it's almost a 50-50 kind of thing of, yes, that's a good thing. No, it's not a good thing. I just don't want it where I live. So, so that continues to go forward. I know there's been progress made in that. And so anyway, if you haven't had a chance to see the results of that survey that were put out in the city council meeting, that might be a good thing to go back and watch. Okay, let's get back. I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you very much for sharing your comments with us and everything. We'll now have, we have another one if you guys wanted to speak. You're
I'll get the
keeping
list
it?
here while
Okay.
you work off of that.
All right. Next is Kendall Pace. Is Kendall here? Oh, right there. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me. I realize what you just said about people in the life cycle. I don't know if they initially understand that as it related to the referendum one. Is that what it was called last November?
Prop 1.
I think most people, at least the ones I've talked to, felt like that was a vote against multi-family high or multi-family medium. I don't know that everybody really fully understands that, but the truth is they don't want more condos. And I'm opposed to more condos too. You know, I'm not against progress, and there may be some places for it, but in this particular spot, it's not an appropriate spot for multi-family high. It was last October or April. It was this matter was put up for mixed use.
There was this particular property on the highway.
Yeah.
Was a concept plan was presented and talked about. That's all. It was just an initial discussion of going forward. And
the mixed use got stopped at that point, or
the plan, the concept was not accepted because of the way it intermixed and it was not accepted.
right.
So, but there was support for the commercial and so forth. And I don't want to get into too much of that, but that's what it was. It was a concept plan that was presented before. And
It seems that dividing the property to make it a multifamily high and then leaving the other commercial highway district, it's similar to a mixed use plan for that particular parcel. However, I think the mixed use allowed for 45-foot high structures. And I think the multifamily, if I understand it right, is 50-foot high structures.
Scarlett, can you confirm that for me? I think it's 45, but I'm not.
Unless the website's incorrect, it's 50 foot.
Okay, that may be, but we can come back and address
Yes,
that.
but it's lining that section there from 300 north to 500 north with 50-foot high high rises. Basically, that's a pretty good high wall. That's just going to be a barricade for all those living east of that.
So they're going to be looking at that, particularly the current projects. But I talked to the people along Garden Drive in that general area, and
Yeah.
nobody wants it. In fact, they're strongly opposed to it. And the referendum to them was against multifamily apartments and condos. That's what most people felt like they were voting against, even though I understand it's different than that. And it was for a
It was specific to that.
I understand that, but to them, it meant no more of these. And that's what I'm hearing from the citizens of Providence, and that's what they want. And they particularly don't want multifamily high in that location, especially if they're 50 foot. My question is, who benefits from having these multifamily high or these 50-foot apartment high rises along that and that parcel? Who's benefiting from that? How does the city benefit that? As a rhetorical question, you can answer that, that'd be great, but more of a rhetorical question. Is there a benefit for the city, or is it a benefit only for the developers or somebody that comes in? I know that changing that zone from what it is now,
From
it's
commercial highway.
highway district, and then it's multifamily high. It'll make the property more valuable. The purchase price of that property be more valuable. So we don't really know for sure if that's all this is about, is that raise the price of that property so that whoever owns it now can actually sell it for a higher price, and then it goes from there from whoever buys it and develops it from that point. So I think we need to be careful with that as well as how that is developed from there. I have more things to say, but I know I used up all my time.
So you're all right. Got him in a couple minutes. I can give you.
Really, I don't know if I have that much left in me, other than I'm just opposed to it. And we spent the last several days walking our neighborhood, which is over off of 500 North and Garden Drive, that area. And everybody, I haven't got anybody that's happy. Most people just had a sigh of, here we go again. I thought we were done with that. Why are we doing this again? Why do we have to watch the city, what they do? We're expecting the city, and I guess I'm speaking for myself, but this is what I heard too. We expect the city, the planning commission. I realize yours is a recommendation here tonight, it's not said. The council can change either way you go. But most people just want to live their lives, do their business, and have the council and the commission look after the city and look for the best interest of the city, not for the best interest of a developer just trying to profit off of this. I'll leave that with you.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
As you mentioned that you went around talking with people in the area over there, was the desire to look at the back of commercial buildings, dumpsters and all of that? As opposed to a landscape residential
They would
area?
prefer commercial high. We're not, you're taking that and you're leading me into something, but we don't.
No.
That's
It's
not- no,
either,
no, if
it's
you're-
either you're gonna look at the back of commercial
You're saying
buildings.
that, sir. We're gonna be looking at dumpsters, or we're gonna have these high
No,
rises.
I'm
Is that what we're saying?
I'm saying that you're gonna look at the back of commercial buildings. I mean, we can all drive through different areas of commercial buildings, and they may have trailers stored behind them. They certainly have dumpsters and things like that. They could have all kinds of stuff, storage back there. I mean, you could go look at many of them. I'm just saying, would
Okay,
you
I've got-
prefer to have
I've got a question
that
for you. Is that what the city allows, have dumpsters and trash?
for commercial buildings? We allow individuals to have trash cans? I don't want to argue with you.
I'm not.
I'm just trying to find out.
I don't
what
want to,
did
I don't
those
want to use
people
that
say
as
they
I want
wanted?
trash cans or high rises, saying I don't want to have that as an
Well,
option.
I'm not as, well, okay, forget the trash can statement. And please, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to understand, because I got information from other people around there and some other things. And I also have the survey results and things like that. And I'm curious, would people prefer to look at the back of commercial buildings instead of a landscape residential area? That's all I'm asking. And from the people you talked to, did we talk about that,
I
or?
didn't ask the question that way because I'm not even certain there's going to be a landscape property that we're going to be looking at the high rises that are just south of here. There's not much landscaping there. It's mostly just high rises in little alleyways between the buildings. So do we know if there's going to be landscaping? I think that the property is more suited for something more like a 2-story. If you want 4-plexes or duplexes, I think that's more suited for that than just putting a 50-foot barrier or high rise stringing the highway. Yeah, and I don't know if that's really the option that we have, is to look at backsides of commercial buildings. So I don't think a 5-story, 4-story commercial building is
gonna go there anyway. I don't think too many developers or commercial people want it, but it's not really a place for
Yeah,
it anyway.
I don't know that, I don't have an idea of what's coming. I'm just
Yeah.
curious. As I drive around and so forth, I mean, that's the end thing. One comment that was made, and we'll get to that as we look at the letters that came in, is individuals saying, I would rather look at the back of commercials buildings than look at more apartment buildings or condominiums or townhomes. So I'm curious if that's,
Did you say that backwards, or is that what they're saying?
no, they said in the one
They'd
of the
rather look at
letters.
it, they'd rather look at the commercial back.
They would rather look at the backside of commercials than look at apartment or condominiums.
I got the impression that they'd rather have the zoning stay as it is rather than have the high-rise apartments in there.
So look at the back of.
Well, you're putting words, I'm not saying that.
It's gonna be to the back. We're gonna put the commercial to the front of the highway.
The city, the city must have ordinances about trash being displayed out there anyway. We must have some kind of ordinance in the city, but I don't know.
I never said it was gonna be trashy. I'm just saying, drive around and look at the back of commercial buildings, and that'll give you an idea. If you just say it's just gonna stay commercial, that's gonna be the back side of the building. So that's all I was suggesting. I just wanted to
You were
feel
trying
from your.
I know you were suggesting something else, but I understand they'd rather look at the backside of commercial buildings, not the trash of the commercial buildings, obviously, but the commercial buildings would be their preference. And
Yeah. Well, that's what one, that's what
50-story
one
building.
citizen said.
Yeah.
That's all I was saying. And so I was curious if you heard that as well.
It
when
was
you were
never
out.
presented that way, but they'd rather have
Yeah.
leave it the way it's shown than put a 50-story or 50-foot building lining the freeway there or the highway there.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well, thank you
it's good
very
debate. I'll
much.
be glad to debate with you more.
No, I'm not trying to debate with you. I just want us to look at everything. I mean, that's a big part of it there, is just to look at everything. So we know, it's just like you said in the beginning. Everybody thought that Prop 1, not everybody, but a lot of people thought Prop 1 was going to stop high density housing, townhomes and condominiums and apartments and everything in Providence. That wasn't the case at all. It was for that specific piece of property. And so anyway, even a lot of the signs that were out to vote against it said no more high density in Providence.
Well, I am, and I think most people are for progress. We just need good planning so that it doesn't just have spotty.
Well, and that's
things
why
anyway.
we
And we'd like
invite all of you here.
smoother transitions and with this rather than abrupt, right there is really a big abrupt 50 foot high, it's like
Yeah.
double the height of a
Well,
telephone pole.
I have no idea what they're even going to look at. I have no idea what the height or anything is. We certainly have to give the developer an opportunity
I
to
agree.
present something.
Absolutely.
I think that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good, thanks.
Okay. The next I have is Nelson Palmer.
Thank you. I do want to try to understand just a little bit. I looked at the planning and I'm trying to figure out what's what. So as it's currently zoned, it's commercial. And then there's additional commercial. It's a double wide commercial. And they're talking about taking half that commercial and turning it into high density. And then next to that is medium density. Is that right? Or is that just a proposal that's on the website?
What there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, is the property on the commercial highway that is part of this hearing. This particular parcel is commercial. It's commercial
Right.
highway.
And that goes about halfway of the whole farm, right? Or all of the farm.
Part of there's different parcels where, I'm sorry,
That goes to all the farm, goes to the whole
farm
Farm.
basically.
Farm,
And then you
that's-
have the two,
And
you
then
have
they
the
have-
senior housing. It will back up to the senior housing
Okay,
development over there. I don't have the name of it right in front of me.
okay, so there is a senior development plan.
That's already been approved and done.
So, and
They're
it's,
starting to build
and
houses.
it's at what kind of, is it kind of like the Providence Place, or is it kind of like the
It's single family housing. Is that
single
correct?
family housing?
It's the 55 plus single family. I think it was 6,000 square foot lots. Is that right? 8,000?
Yeah.
Six. I think it was 6,000 square foot lots.
They're all to the level point. And I'm the one that's here presenting my project, and we are building the 55 and older.
Okay. So
So they
okay,
have two different projects.
yeah, so there's Garden States and there's Barlow's, or it used to be Barlow's, I don't know.
Barlow's are still there.
Yeah, and then this 55 plus, and then the property under consideration. Is that right? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have it on the map there, if that helps you.
Yeah, that's what I looked at, but I didn't know what that, it didn't say 55 plus thing.
Okay.
And I was trying to understand. Okay, so I like the idea of having the 55 plus there and turning that, I understand the high density, that's a pretty high structure there. But continuing that, switching that to making the 55 wider, 55 plus section wider, that would be something that my wife and I talked about. Even though we're past that point now, but anyway, when we live on 300 South, and it was the new subdivision 24 years ago. But, anyway, and we've watched all the building going around us. Just like we were watched when our subdivision went in. If it happens, if we can't have a single, or even if we do have single homes in there, the traffic situation is what I wanted to talk about, not to take away from the other discussions that were here. With a high density or any kind of family homes, movement of children, movement of 55 plus people going to the grocery store, they probably wouldn't be 55 plus, probably wouldn't be going to Spring Creek very often, but movement of kids across those is an important safety issue. And right now, we watch the traffic. I ride my bike there every day, and the traffic's already funny. Increasing the number of families. I know we're widening the road. I see that's happening. That's physically happening there. It's not happening on the north side, and I understand that a single resident owns that area that isn't. But if there's some way for somehow to help that area, because that narrowing and widening of the road becomes a dangerous area, and it's a safety concern right now, especially if you start bringing people in. They're going to be living in those places if it's not widened out there. That's a safety issue. I'm assuming that the water situation's been looked at, and we're good to that. I know that's always been a concern. But if that hasn't been looked at, that's a concern. And then speed management through on 485 West. It's already, because we're opening up further south, it's become a drag race. It used to only be on Sunday before and after church. That used to be a drag race. Now that it's opened up, it's a drag race from about 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then in the mornings before and after school, and as people go to work. And increasing the number of people in that area will just increase that traffic hazard. And we need to be aware of how to control that, because there have been animals killed on that road because of the high traffic speeds and stuff. So that's all I wanted to bring up. I understand I sat in your seats before, and you're gathering information, and I want to put that on the list of information to be gathered.
So you've made some great comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Give me just a second. I'm trying to keep up with my notes and keep up with you guys. Boy, I'm not sure of this next name. Tyler, can you get me out anything there?
Jason Holmes. Jason.
Is that it, Jason Holmes? Perfect. Are you a doctor by chance?
No, I'm a realtor.
I thought maybe the signature, was hard for me.
No, I didn't think it was that crazy, but I'm just just seeing this for the first time. Wasn't able to pull it up before, but
Sure.
I'm trying to understand. And I just live like a half a mile from here.
Right.
Been here 10 years in my house. Pro growth, pro development, smart. And I'm conscious of the NIMBYs and not my backyarders. Nobody wants that. I get it. It's a tough situation. I guess my question is, what is the plan? If you scroll down further to the different zones, I don't know what the colors mean. Whoever's in charge of the thing, what does high density in Logan? I know what it means in Logan. What does it mean in the province? How many units per acre? And are they going to be rentals, resale, or does that not matter? I mean, it's probably a better spot than most places is to have it near a highway. And those are just some of my questions there. I just wrote down a few. Let me pull back up my notes. Do you know what the unit density is per acre in the multifamily high?
Do you want me just to take a minute and explain?
Yeah,
Because that might
I think that would be helpful to everybody
Yeah.
as we're like going at this like kind of backwards, honestly.
If you'd like to go
Sure.
ahead, have a seat and start it.
Fine, if you'll just leave that up for a minute.
Maybe just like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, right here is, this is Zions Bank right there. And right here in this purple, that is multifamily medium density. And so there is a maximum of 12 units per acre in this purple color.
Right.
This one,
That's already been approved for town.
Right.
Yeah.
this one right here is single family high. Those are single family detached homes, and they are 6,000. They're 5.5 units per acre.
That's the 55 plus.
Yes, well,
I'm
And that's-
aware of those, I don't know what.
which is right over here too. It's not 55 plus, but all of Brookside is single family high. This is currently commercial highway district,
Right,
which allows buildings as tall as 50 feet as well.
correct.
High, multifamily high allows 18 units per acre. And I'm sorry to the people because we address you, we don't get in debate. So they'll have to listen to me talk to you. I'm just gonna go through the comparison chart really quickly. In the commercial high, there are different scenarios as to how front setbacks can be, depending on how they put their parking. But generally, if they're gonna have parking in the front, they're gonna have 35 feet back to their building at least. In the multifamily high, there's 25 feet on the front setback. In the height, in the multifamily high, which is the 18 units per acre, you can have a building as tall as 50 feet. In the commercial highway district, which it's already zoned, you can have a building as tall as 50 feet. And I don't remember the building that we looked at this morning. Ryan, do you remember the height on that building?
I think it was just 2-story.
I think it was two, but I can't remember if the one story was a little bit high. The 50 feet is quite high, but it's not necessarily unusual for a commercial building either.
What's like a Macy's, just for perspective? And we estimate what?
I think I'd have to go look. I think it's 38. I don't remember for sure. I'd have to go look at the plans.
Something a bit less than 50.
Yeah. The accessory units, if they have an accessory, if a commercial building has an accessory building next to it, it can be 50 feet high. In the multifamily high, if they have an accessory type building, a pool house or something like that, the maximum height it can be is 35 feet. And then the fencing is pretty similar. Fences in commercial, if they're going to be in the front yard, they have to get a conditional use. But in multifamily high, they can go as high as 8 feet so that they can, keep the community. However, the top 2 feet would have to be semi-transparent. So there's some things like that. The street side in commercial, again, the condition of the fences are conditional. In multifamily high, again, they can go the 8 feet. In the side yards, in both of them, it's 8 feet, and in the rear yards of both of them, it's 8 feet. So those are kind of the visual comparisons. 18 units per acre. We have a couple of them. The Gateway Drive right over here that everybody, Providence Gateway, that complex is multifamily high. That's 18 units per acre. Right next door on the other side of the accounting office, the, oh shoot, I just forgot their names. Homes on, no. Anyway,
The old golf course?
Yeah.
those townhomes there are multifamily high, so they're 18 units per acre. We have changed our multifamily design standards to require a little bit more landscaping, to require more driveway space between the buildings. So both of these units, both of these townhome, both the townhomes here to the north and those to the south met Providence City Code that was in place at the time. I don't think either of those developments would meet the new code. So there have been some changes. We listened a lot to the public. There have been some changes to the new code. But right now, commercial highway is designed with the hopes of attracting sales tax. So retail generating business or retail businesses that generate sales tax. That's the design. That's the hope for that area. Commercial general, like we have around here, that we certainly don't discourage sales tax. We like that anywhere we can get it, of course, but doctors' offices, professional buildings, even light manufacturing with the conditional use can go into our commercial general areas. But as I said, this is commercial high, so the uses are limited to those that are retail oriented. They can have non-sales tax producing businesses in that area, but only about, I think it's 12% of the overall gross square footage of the buildings can be non-sales tax producing. So those are the biggest things that, and as far as the multifamily high, as far as what uses go in there, they have the same type of home business opportunities that we do in any of our single family neighborhoods.
Can I ask you a quick question that may be helpful? We talked about these two and codes changing for multifamily high, that neither one of them, maybe now, after we listened and did things and changed some stuff. Can you tell us quickly what specific those changes would be? What would be different today?
The driveways, for one thing. Driveways going into a townhome with a garage now, they have to be 17 or 18. I was thinking it's 18, but long enough to get a Suburban on it. And so that puts more distance than what we had before.
I want to underscore that for everyone. So that's if you have an alley or a road, then you have driveways. Those driveways each have to be 17 or 18 feet. We can check on the number. But now instead of having them as close together as they are, you've got a minimum 36 feet plus whatever the road or the alleyway is.
And the road has to be at least 20 feet and maybe a little bit more, depending on the number of units and the way that it's designed for fire code. So the road itself has to be at least 20 feet. So you would have 36 and 20, you'd have 56 feet of space between buildings. We also now require electric vehicle charging stations in our multifamily developments. We require bicycle maintenance and bicycle parking in our multifamily developments. We require a playground area. That percentage, I can't remember what it starts, the square footage of the playground. I want to say it's 800 feet, but I'm not positive. They have to have a playground area, and that percentage or that square footage increases per unit over 10 units. So that's something that these others don't have. The exterior design standards for the single family attached and multifamily buildings, so townhomes, condos, apartments, those design standards increase the exterior or change the exterior a little bit on the requirements there. And so depending on your choice of taste, the goal was to make them even more attractive. Those are pretty much the bigger changes.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
What is the acreage of the zone?
Could you come up and state your name, please? No, come ahead, just for, let you ask the question. Yes.
My name is Holly Lewis and I live on, you knew my address? 56.
No.
Okay. I just live here in
Good, thank you.
Providence. I just wanted to know what the acreage of that zone is,
Of that particular property, the
of
commercial
the high
property.
density, yeah.
Right now it's 13.6. It doesn't say what the.
That's for the commercial and the residential. I think the residential, you take about 4 feet or 4 acres off of the 13.17 or 16 or whatever it is. Then you've got approximately there.
Okay, thank you.
Colin, may I have your last name again for my notes?
Lewis, Lewis. I have a question.
Thank you.
One other
Hold on just a second. Yes, go ahead, Scarlett.
comment. When we talk about density,
Yes.
that's a net acre. So things that are dedicated to the public are subtracted out of that. So you can't always look at the number of acres on a particular site and times that by the number of units, because there is some infrastructure that
It's based on the.
gets subtracted from that.
Thank you very much. I need to let him come forward and finish, and Jason, and then we'll keep going in order.
There was a quiz on everything Scarlett said.
No, this is helpful. So once we pull this up. I'll make this brief. I don't want to be annoying here, but so if I don't know if the developer, who it was, that said it was 4 acres, but so you're saying that of the 13 acres, only the 4 acres would be the high density?
No commercial.
So like 10 of it would be.
It's slightly bigger than 4 acres. I don't.
So that's where I have some heartburn, because I've seen the mistakes of the gateway where they're crammed in, and I'm grateful that that's been kind of changed. If they're not, so dang, neighbors aren't going to hear you sneeze and whatever else as much. But there seems to be this, maybe it's just a trend that we only build car washes and credit unions, and we don't really, and I'm not trying to we don't really get any sales tax from anything, except we just cram in more housing. And I realize we need households to bring in commerce and the almighty Chick-fil-A's and whatever. I guess where's the balance, and what benefits does this proposal bring to the city, to the neighborhoods? Again, I'm not anti-growth. I think that this is a better design than others. I would love to see more commercial, because we have none left, and we have no room left for future schools. The previous mayors have never, that hasn't been like a big motivator. My kids already go to elementary school in River Heights, and with everything else that's being developed there, I just want to know that there's some forethought and some considerable, planning that's going into how the city does grow, instead of just doing the spot rezoning all the time. Because if we're only going to get a benefit of 4 commercial uses, and 2 more of them are going to be probably not car washes, but something. And I mean, I like the car washes too, but
Car wash going in.
I know judges, but I'm just saying like that, what benefit does that bring to the city? Because,
Sales tax from it.
and I don't know that, do they charge sales tax on the memberships? Because when I go to a car wash, I
Yeah,
don't
they
pay sales
charge, they
tax.
charge them tax like they do any business.
I haven't ever paid taxes when I get my car washed, I guess, but that's why I'm trying to, I would love to see more than just 4 parcels be commercial. And then lastly, oh, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
On that survey, just going back, how many participate on that online survey? I realized it was just for that one specific parcel. I know
Well,
it
that
wasn't
was,
for the
well,
whole thing.
no, there's quite a
Was
detail of
it
it.
dozens or
No,
hundreds?
there was hundreds. There was like 13 and stuff like that. Some answered one, some questions.
Yeah, I was just
some
more
less.
mostly
But there
curious.
was,
Little over 200.
And I was against it because I think that's a terrible location for that high density to be right there. I think this is a better spot. I would just like to see more preserved for commercial, for future growth. I think that a hotel would have been better over here than these dang townhomes. And I love them, I sell them, I get it, but it doesn't,
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a balance, that's all.
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jason. I had one question for Mr. Champlin, if I can ask you. On the sketch that's here that I'm looking at, it's like there's 4 additional parcels, but there's a 5th one because it isn't the piece that where Judges is going. So half of that, all the way up there, would all be commercial. Is that correct?
Everything.
Everything
Yeah,
that's on the
a separate
highway.
parcel. Everything along the highway is
Is commercial.
commercial.
Yeah.
And we tried to follow what the city wanted
Right.
to do this.
What do you
And I can talk about what they did across the street.
Yeah. We'll talk about that when we get you up here. I'm trying to get through. I've got one more person on this list, and then we'll look at a couple others. I have Colin, is that right? Okay.
Thank you for your time. My name is Colin Daly. I live at 380 Garden Drive. A couple remarks that I'd like to make. First is I've always felt I've been fairly spatially aware. However, after seeing the high density housing that went in on Gateway, I realized I probably don't understand like what 18 units per acre or something like that is, but I remember being marginally okay with that going in, but I have to say I was really shocked when I saw how much density that was in reality. So I think now I kind of have a better understanding of that. So I'm a bit more keen on that. Quick remark, the very first gentleman that came up here, psychologist who spoke about the sexual predators. I just want to make a remark. I'm really uncomfortable with how close that those apartments are to the school grounds. It just makes me feel uncomfortable knowing that my kids could be out there and there could be some people moving in who maybe aren't technically sexual offenders or predators yet, but it makes me a little bit nervous just to see that closeness. I also see in the city of Logan with the new Mill Creek apartments being put in, and then I think that area on that corner where they took those houses down, I think that is going to be apartments as well. I just find that I'm uncomfortable with that. The main reason why I came up here is I'm not really saying yes or no to the high density. I think the community has got a pretty strong opinion about that. I just have a quick little remark, probably to the Champlins. I do appreciate that the development that's been going on the south side of that Meadow Lane development. Construction vehicles have been going quite slowly, and I appreciate all that. I am concerned though with all this new construction going in about the traffic on Garden Drive. Now we live there and it's, I feel like it's tolerable what's going on, but I think if this is going to be a continued pattern, I'd like to see if maybe we can come up with some alternatives. One of the things I've seen on the tax map is there's a proposed road, South 550 West. I would like to know if that could be considered, or at least put that out to be the main service road for construction vehicles for that development of that area. And that way it could ease some of the bandwidth and some of the traffic congestion for the construction vehicles on Garden Drive itself. That's essentially all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to have to keep to our 5-minute rule, and actually there's a limit to it, but I need to give everybody as much a chance to speak before we get on. Am I all right with that? Commissioner, do you guys all right with that? Okay. like to move next to Nate Leishman.
Right. I wasn't really expecting to say anything, but the only thing I really will comment about is that doing any development, there's an option to do something here. And I mean, we can all wish upon the stars anything we want to do on any property. But the fact that there's an opportunity to do multifamily or commercial, rezoning it, if you bring rooftops, you'll bring, commercial. It doesn't go the other way around. You have to bring rooftops first, bring commercial. And doing a rezone certainly will bring the development here. And if you don't rezone it, it's a little more challenging to spur development, and it may just stay the way it is for a long time. So that's probably all I have to say for right now, unless anyone else has any questions.
Anybody else? Our primary job is to listen. I've kind of violated that rule a little bit at this time, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is it Delwyn Wilder? Is that right? Wilden. Thank you.
Delwyn Wilden. I've lived in Providence for 40 some odd years. I've watched the growth come. It seems like now all it is the high density. They want to put them in as close as they can get. I am against the multifamily high density. In the past, fourplexes here, fourplexes there, not a community. And that's what we're putting in, are single communities inside our community. Also, all the roads coming in to Providence seem to be getting high density housing. And that's a beautiful thing when you see coming in to Providence. I'm against the high density. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Holly, did you have any more that you wanted to say?
Yeah. So first of all, I understand about wanting to make it more available, housing more available for people that, with lower incomes, but I'm a single mom and I'm doing fine living in a single family home. I moved here because I wanted safety. I lived in California for 13 years. I survivor of assault in this very similar situation. I'm just telling you, it does bring further crime. These people are moving in and out. I want my kids to be safe. I've already noticed a lot more traffic in just a couple of years of being here. I don't think that it doesn't seem like that they've considered like the traffic, the water, the sewer. I mean, I already know that we're losing I understand that we have to come up with our own place for waste after this year.
Are you talking about garbage?
Garbage and everything else
Well,
like that.
would you like to address that, Ryan, as our city manager?
We're working on that, but it will go to the landfill. I mean, it's just the process of how to get there. But
Okay, so I'm just saying that it also sets a precedence for more high density zones. I know that there's, like, my parents live out in Wellsville. When they did their development, when they moved into their development, they literally had to have, for like 16 houses, they had to have a separate park that's like just as big as the lots that the 16 houses sat on. I think it keeps the hometown feel. If you look at that zone and you just kind of estimate, that's another 130 homes minimum. Has there been studies that have been made that are going to be available for the public that show that it's not going to have any negative effect on the current homeowners? Because I know that that's part of a rezone, that you're required to have certain studies done. Will those studies be done, and will they be made available to the public?
Scarlett, can you tell me if we're required to have studies for a rezone in our code?
I believe it's in all code, because I did this a few years ago with my dad in Millville, and we did request them.
We don't have them do the traffic analysis for a reason, or we, let me hurry and pull it up really quick. So I apologize, I was looking something else up, so it's related to this, but it was something else. I'm not aware of that either. No.
So there is no requirement you're saying, or you're just not aware of it?
I'm not aware.
Okay, so like if we came up with like, I have my brother-in-law that's a lawyer, I could ask him what those, like I could find out the exact code.
Take a look at-
If
you
you're
can look at the
asking if
code
they're
online.
required in state code, they're not.
They're not.
They're not required by state code that I'm aware of.
So you can look at the Providence code and state codes online, and you
Okay,
can go through
I
and
see
so
that.
forth, but yeah, that's why I want to get clarification on.
Yeah,
that. I don't
because
think-
it was, to my understanding, if you change a zone from commercial to housing to like single family high density or any of those things, that there has to be some kind of a study that shows that it won't negatively impact any of the current residents.
We can look into that, and you certainly have access to it as well.
Okay.
That's California requirement.
It's not California, it's Utah. It was
Well,
in
it might
Utah.
have been Millville.
You think Millville had it, is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they did have it,
Yeah,
and we had to fill out, I think it's a gamma report request, and we sent it in, and then they gave us the reports.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
I'll talk to.
And I might be wrong on the name of the report.
Yeah,
because
but that's
do
okay.
reports for other things, so I might
Yeah.
be confused.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Holly. Okay. Mike Lillywhite, please.
Good evening. So I actually, this new development is actually in my backyard. So, and I the 55 plus going in, which I think is going to be fairly nice. They already have some of the names going in, so it's kind of interesting seeing the people moving in there, you know, some sort of a realistic touch, I guess. So to bring it back to the multifamily, I know when we moved in, first off, a little bit of my background. My dad is actually was a developer, retired after several attempts at retiring. He actually did what was considered high density housing in Smithfield, which was actually single floor houses, which was basically, back, side to side to side homes that actually worked well with the area that was along railroad track, single floor. You could, you didn't have the issue that was mentioned earlier of people peeping. There was a fence around it and so on. Still high density relatively, but nowhere near the tall development. So I grew up on the west side of Smithfield, where someone would buy a property, buy farmland, build a house, move in, and then promptly throw up their arms and say, nobody else can move in to this area. So I don't want that to be the case for myself as well. But I think there's some reason to put in. I know when we first moved here, none of these high density were here. When they started coming in, I thought, okay, here it's coming, it's going to happen. But at the time, they were gradually coming in, and I was thinking, oh, okay, they're just a couple floors tall. It's all right. And then these 3-story ones that are huge came in. I was like, now I can't see the temple anymore, because it was like there, and the view was gone. So I think there's some reason there. I think 50 feet is very tall for Providence, Utah. So having that high of a building, I think, is a big deal. Again, goes back to the visibility. I think if you have reasonable height homes, reasonable height, even high density homes, is a lot easier to deal with on my point of view. Probably because there's nothing else around that tall. The trees aren't even that tall. So I could put a giant tree in the backyard. I guess if I had it right up next to the house, it would block a few of things. But so I understand that there's going to be some growth. I was aware of when I voted. I was aware about the stuff that was going up. I knew that was not going to be the end. I knew that when that went down, when that was blocked, it was actually going to put more pressure on stuff coming into our house. So yeah, anyway, I actually voted to say yes to that, just be one of the odd people out, because I knew that there had to be some leeway given somewhere. And I knew more pressure would be put on our side. So, but now we're here. But if there's anything that we can give, I imagine it's going to happen. But if we can do something like limit the size, the height, or do something that is reasonable, I think, I can't force somebody, like I said, my dad was a builder. There's always thousands of people that want to tell a property owner what they can do with their land. But I think there ought to be some reason behind the decisions that are made out there. Looking at if I'm trying to imagine the other day, the height of buildings here versus what's there. And there's that tower. I don't know if you can see, there's that like old bungee tower that's rising up above the trees, goes up from our house is halfway up the mountains. I think that's about how high it will look. If they build as tall as they are here, that's how high it will look from our house. And we're kind of elevated over what is the single floor residential, the 55 plus. They're going to be closer and lower. And then to them, that's going to dominate their view. So if we can have something that's somewhat reasonable as a height, I think they would appreciate it going in. Their homes aren't even built yet, and they're already having to face this. So anyway, those are some thoughts. Hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, that's in our backyard, literally. Backyard of our backyard, the neighbor's backyard. But anyway, hopefully that's some food for thought.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Matt Clyde.
I'm back. I'm back. I actually could talk about item number 4. I don't know if we're.
Okay, then we'll hold off till we get to that one. If you don't mind. Thank you. In fact, I know. Just a second. Jessica, please.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to apologize for coming late. I was at a soccer game.
State your name again. Just for the
Jessica
record.
Jacobs.
Thank you.
I live on Garden Drive. I moved to Logan to go to Utah State, and I graduated in 2015. And when I was going to school, I needed housing, affordable housing. And I found, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bridgerland Meadows development. Having lived in other apartment situations and so on, Bridgerland Meadows had a great space for the kids. There were several playgrounds, and the kids almost felt encouraged to go outside and safe because we could see them playing the way that it's set up. Here, I can't even believe that these enormous buildings are almost touching each other. And there is a lot of driveway space and garage space, and we do not want our kids playing there. That is so dangerous. Someone backing out of their garage when there's no place for kids to play, they're going to hit kids. We don't want that to happen. The other thing is today on Garden Drive, I was just outside taking the garbage out or something, and a little 7-year-old went right out in front of a big black Suburban, and she slammed on her brakes and honked, and he almost got hit, and he was completely oblivious of how much danger he was actually in. And River Heights already has 4 portables. It's crowded, and the diversity there is good for the kids. It really is, but at the same time, it makes it harder for them. Really. So those are a couple of points that I wanted to bring up. Looking at the drawings, my question is, I don't see where access roads are. Did I miss that?
The gray area is the main road going out to the highway. And then when we get to the.
Is this 3rd South then?
South is at the
It's
top.
at the
Oh,
top.
I see it. Sorry, I just didn't see it from where I was sitting. So,
We'll have to wait till the developer, the applicant presents us stuff and things like that, but
I know it's, as soon as traffic comes in, not only do we have, danger for children crossing roads, but we have teenagers driving with the high school right there. It's gonna be, we have to really keep that in mind as we set that up.
thank you very much. Just appreciate it. Next, we'll have Natalie Hortonson, please.
Hi,
If you'll state your name.
I'm Natalie
Thank
Hortonson.
you.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I have lived a lot of places. I grew up outside of Washington, DC, and we moved to Boston after school. We lived in New York, and then we moved back to DC, and then we moved here. And in Boston and New York, we lived in townhouses, and I have never, not in Boston, not in DC, not in New York, I have never seen anything like this gateway thing where they're so close and they're so crowded. When I lived in a townhouse, there was parking spots. I mean, there was like a parking lot in front and green space behind. None of the ones I lived in had a playground. They were townhouses, but there were some places to go. And I'm very disappointed that the zoning requirements allowed that. I think everybody here would agree that that was a monstrosity and a mistake. I haven't talked to anybody who's been like, wow, those are great. Maybe the builders who made a lot of money off of it, but it seems a little bit money grubbing to try and shove as much as you could on that acreage. And I'm very disappointed because we live in such a beautiful valley. I think this is a really nice place to be, and I really do want to encourage it to develop. I think it can develop in great ways. It is a beautiful place with lots of beautiful, wonderful people. But ever since this place went in, the high density, my son rides the bus, and we've never had problems, but we've started having people have been shooting spitballs at him on the bus. We never had any bullying problems before, but we've started having people throwing paper at him, doing spitballs. When we lived in DC, we had a problem. His bus went around to some lower income neighborhoods, and his older brother had some problems with kids stealing his stuff and stuff. But you're going to see a lot more of that. That's just something that's going to happen. And I think it's hard when the kids don't have green places to play. They end up getting into trouble. They get in groups, and then they all start roaming around in the parks. I know soon after that went in, we got an email from Providence saying, hey, don't graffiti our parks. And I kind of had to laugh because, I mean, that park is right behind that big complex, and there's nowhere for those kids to go. There's nothing for them to do. We need to keep that in mind. I really enjoy medium density. I don't think townhouses are bad, but I think cramming a ton of people in a small amount of space isn't great. New York City does it. I have a friend who lives in New York City, and she says that the youth programs for her children are amazing. They just have a lot of resources so that the kids have places to go and to do, even though they don't have the green space, but there has to be balance. I liked what people talked about. We need more schools. If we're going to put in all this high density housing, we need to have community centers. I mean, if we're really going to put these people in this close, then there needs to be a YMCA or some place for these kids to go, because you can't just shove everybody into a small space and then be like, okay, you're on your own now. There just needs to be a balance, and I'm really for development, but probably not high density at so close to this high density. I think you need to spread it out a little. You need to have a little bit more room, and have some diversification. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay. Our last one, Rebecca Adelios.
I'll save mine for the city council meeting.
Okay. All right. They're probably watching. You could give them a preview of what's
They may not open it up to a public
Yeah.
hearing, just so you know. I don't know if they will or won't, so
Yeah.
well, I'm, if you've got a comment, what I'm trying to do is encourage you to say it here, because this may be the only public hearing opportunity.
Mine is just about the crime, same as my husband's and stuff I've researched.
Hold on just 1 second, please.
Okay, so Rebecca Hedelius, I live on 300 South, right there where it all's coming in. But as I've been researching, this is what I found, and this is for the state of Utah. It says, while there are a number of external factors that can contribute to crime rates, it's worth consideration that there is a notable correlation between density and crime. In a comparison of 100 of the most densely populated counties in the United States, the top 25% ranked say there's an extremely high rate of violent crime in highly dense areas with people crammed in. And so similar to Mortensen and everyone else, just the crime rate, I think is going to skyrocket. I think gangs will be more prevalent. I think there's going to be a lot of issues that you all haven't thought of. And I'm thinking, what are you thinking? Those houses are going, those condominiums are going all the way to the church and the school. What in the world? It should have stopped. It should have been stopped. And the same developer, another thing is the same person, the same company is like building everything in the whole valley. I mean, it's time to choose somebody else to build it, number one. But to put that many people is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's stupid. There you go.
All right. Okay. Yes.
I didn't get a chance to write my name on the paper.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Come on up. I'd rather give you a chance. I can't say we didn't. And if you'll state your name. I know what it is.
Yeah, Dan Mazaris. I share backyards with Ballard Springs. So seeing all the development going. First thing I have is just a clarifying question. I apologize if I missed this in translation. But with the second individual, you had this brief exchange of whether you'd like to look at the back of a commercial versus look at kind of a landscaped area. My clarifying question is, in this scenario, is it an either or?
No, I was just saying,
just for the sake of,
he had said that he had gone around the neighborhood and talked with people about this.
Great.
And so, and I mentioned that in one of the letters received, someone makes the comment, I would rather look at commercial.
Okay, great. So it's not an either or. It's not like we have two decisions here that we're discussing.
We're just discussing public comments.
Okay, great. That helps formulate some of my thoughts and some of my questions as well. So my second question would be, when observing the discussion of the group of various individuals and the panel here, whose purpose is, from what I understand, just to listen, I noticed some perk ups and some exchanges when discussing particularly the code that has changed and how the high density housing, we've made certain code changes that are going to make it more appealing. So what I'm trying to understand is in those what's the motivation? What's the motivation in moving this to high density as opposed to keeping it commercial?
I'm going to let the builder speak to that, the developer speak to that, and so forth. And I guess to possibly answer part of your question about why the exchanges and things and perk up. We've listened to the public and the city and the staff and councils and commissions, and to take what those things and improve upon. I mean, and so, I mean, that's what we try to do. Right. And so when there was an opportunity to say, okay, this is what these two were, would they be approved today? No. What were the changes that we try to do to make it better? So anyway, that's it. And I think as you stay and listen with the developer, then
Okay, good to understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else before we close the public comment?
What about the letters that were sent to us?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so either if you'd like, I'm more than happy to read those letters, but if you guys have already read the letters, if you could just kind of indicate for the record that you've read them, you've got the sentiment of, I believe they were all objections. They were 4 or 5 letters that we received that you all, that I all emailed you. So again, I'm more than happy to read them. If you've already read them.
For the record, there was a letter from a Megan Jones.
I've read them. This is Brian.
Sorry.
Brian was just, he had read them.
Yeah. One from Donna and Reggie Oliver. One from Kaylee Thompson, and if I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. And one from Kendall Pace, and then there was a 5th one. These 4 were on one email, which is why I pulled them up, but there was one on its own email that you sent
That
to
was,
us.
Shalice,
Shalice Carlson.
Shalice Carlson, yeah.
Yeah, and I read that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are these going to be available online or something?
Give me just a minute about that, okay? Go ahead, if you're finished, Joe.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I would like to indicate one did come in maybe an hour before we started the meeting. It was just a written hand note from Robert Clark. He simply said he was sorry he was out of town or to be out of town for a medical procedure, but that we are against the multifamily high, and then said commercial use only.
Ryan, the question I have is, these letters, is it typical that we would put them up? If somebody would allow someone to come in and look at them if they wanted. I don't want to take the time to read it.
Yeah, no,
I think some of them were.
I could at least white out the names and post them with the minutes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think some of the comments were inappropriate and without merit, but they have a right to voice their opinions. So I'm not going to take the time to read them here, but they would be with the minutes and they could go and read. You guys can go and read them if you would like to. The commission all right with that?
I say since they're part of public record, include their names, but redact their email addresses.
That's what.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's what I meant, sorry.
Okay. All right, give me just a second, please. Okay, we are going to close the public hearing portion of the public hearing. And correct me if I'm wrong, I kind of got my notes mixed up here, but was this, would I invite you up now, Scarlett, to just give an overview and then allow the developer to come forth?
Well, that's how you usually do it, but.
Yeah. Well,
No different if you want.
No, that's what I would like to do.
Okay.
I have too many notes. And then I'd like to make some comments after that point. A couple things.
Okay, I did a little bit of homework. Whoops, got the wrong homework. So in the Utah code, under zoning districts, it talks about how the legislative body can divide the zoning districts over which it has jurisdiction into. Zoning districts of a number, shape, and area that it considers appropriate to carry out the purposes of this chapter, which is talking about the zoning chapter in Utah code.
Let's make sure everybody understands. The legislative body is the city council.
Yes, the legislative body is the city council. The planning commission, holds the public hearing, here's the comments, passes recommendation on, passes comments on. But the planning commission, while you do make a decision as far as what you'd like to recommend, you don't get to actually zone the property. That is the legislative body, which is the city council. It does not, that I can find, require any type of reporting be submitted with a land use application for rezone. I looked in our code, and what we require is, this is under Providence City Code 10-1-5 for change to the zoning ordinance. An application for rezone must include the payment of the application fees, a written statement for the purpose of the rezone, the combined legal description of the areas proposed for the rezone, a map showing the area proposed for the rezone, including the general location of all non-developable sensitive areas, all potentially developable sensitive areas, existing infrastructure, including but not limited to roads, water mains, sewer mains, stormwater facilities, parks, etc., and any proposed infrastructure shown in the city's general plan and associated maps, the names and addresses for affected entities as defined by Utah Code 10-9A-103, and the names and addresses for adjacent property owners as defined by Providence City Code 10-1-6-B2. Applicants are encouraged to, but not required to, provide information about the type of housing, the layout of the development, etc., for the benefit of the Planning Commission. So we don't ask for a feasibility report with the zoning. We do ask for that at the time of annexation, but we don't ask for it with the zoning. And then we ask for a whole bunch when they come in to start to want to develop, depending on what zone they're developing in. So I think that answered those two questions. So in our staff report for this item, I reviewed the comparisons, so I won't do that again, but when we look at making a staff report, we look at the general plan, and we look at the state code, which I read a part of that we already consider. We look at city code. One thing in the state code in 10-9A-302, that this is paraphrased to do the actual code, you can look it up, but the Planning Commission shall review and make a recommendation to the legislative body in our city, that's the city council, for amendments to existing land use regulations, which includes zoning. Before making a recommendation to the legislative body on an item described in section 1A or 1B, which is talking about annexing and talking about changes to the land use code, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing in accordance with section 10-9A-404, which we did do that. And actually it's 204, I believe. The Providence City Code 10-4-1 establishes the zoning districts and the Providence City General Plan, the Transportation Plan, the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan, and current and anticipated development in the immediate and surrounding areas were considered for review of the application. Providence City Code 10-5 defines and lists the regulations for sensitive areas. City Code 10-6-1 lists the uses designated in each zone, and Providence City Code 10-8-1 lists the area regulations designated in each zone. And those are the things that I reviewed a few minutes ago with the heights and whatnot. Providence City has divided the city into zoning districts. The Planning Commission will hold a public hearing prior to making the recommendation on their request. The zoning districts include both the Commercial Highway District, which is CHD, and the MFH District, which is multifamily high. The general plan, vision, and key initiatives are listed in this report. The property is currently zoned Commercial Highway District. The general plan map and future rezoning map of the existing districts, and Ryan is on the page that I'm on. That's illustration B. If you will note on that, that shows that we don't anticipate changing from commercial high. We look at roads. I know someone asked about that. We do look at roads. Our transportation plan identifies this area of 300 South as a major collection road, and this area of 500 South as a minor arterial. And it talks about what is needed for those roads. 300 South is also a limited access road, and 300 South and 500 South show that they will have bike lanes that are separated with the buffer, or not a buffer, with the striping. You can see the illustration, right? If you want to go to the next, I guess it's the next page after that, or there we go, the bottom of the page there. And I do know that Fox Hollow has incorporated that. Fox Hollow is the townhome development just to the east. They've incorporated the striping for the bike lane in their project. As far as parks, trails, and recreation master plan for this area, the master plan proposes a roadside pathway for the area of 300 South and this area of 500 South, and which is not necessarily a walking path. It's a roadside pathway that allows for biking. They'll have sidewalks on them for pedestrian traffic. So we have looked at those plans as far as our general and master plans go. The sensitive areas that are listed within here, the jurisdictional wetlands are defined by the Army Corps of Engineers. Steep slopes are where there's a rise and fall that exceeds 30%. For a horizontal difference of 50 feet or greater, measured perpendicular to the contour lines, and natural waterways or open water, including but not limited to rivers, creeks, or streams. And those are shown. They are shown on the map. Where did it go? You can visually see those different areas as you're looking at the zoning map. The ones that show the current zones, you can visually see underneath. You can see the creeks and you can see the roads. The packet shows the proposed roads, so we are looking at all of that. Lands within potentially sensitive areas may be developed and built upon, subject to the requirements of Providence City Code 10-5 and other applicable city, state, federal requirements, and may be considered for development density at the discretion of the Planning Commission and based on recommendations from professionals with expertise in the field being studied. The Cache County GIS parcel lists areas that may require further analysis, which will be the sensitive areas, canals, wetlands, water bodies, FEMA floodplain, county floodplain buffer, moderate steep slopes, and steep slopes, liquefaction potential, and wild hazard areas. The summary parcel is included in this. There's the comparisons that we've read. And as far as staff recommendations and conditions, prior to making a recommendation to the City Council, the Planning Commission must hold a public hearing, and then our final condition is that the applicant shall meet all applicable state and federal laws, codes, rules. Approval by the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal highways. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. And while we talk about those sensitive areas that will come into play when they show us on that map, some of those sensitive areas, like the area that the water body takes up, that amount of acreage that takes up, that has to be excluded from the development. So that's why I said, just because we say there's 9 acres or whatever it may be, that doesn't mean that all 9 acres can be counted in the calculations to consider the amount for density. Because staff tries really hard to stick to our general plan and our transportation plan and our master plan, I will point out that the general plan did not anticipate this changing from commercial highway. So the general plan does show this area as staying commercial highway.
Thank you very much.
And I think, did I miss any questions? I think that
Anyone
answered.
have any questions for Scarlett?
Okay.
Brian, how about you?
got bored and quit listening.
I'm here. Scarlett, I'm here and I'm listening
I know.
and I'm staying awake. It's very important decisions to make here tonight. I have no questions at this point in time. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I need to ask that we stop for a couple of minutes. I have a device in my back and it's shifted, and so it's shorting right now. So I've got to go move it back in the right place. If you'll just give me a couple of minutes, and then we will ask Mr. Chatham, the applicant, to come forward and talk with us.
The comment made that we're not going to read the emails in. I wasn't sure they were going to be read in. And this is Tyler Recorder. Yeah, I know, recognize it. But the problem I had is what the chairman said. Too. He said that somewhere, he said there were fences in those, some of the fences. It sounded like they were fences. Mine was not. You read it, I think. I've read them all. So mine didn't have any. I'm an independent one to that. So I wanted to read it so that people know for the record publicly that I did not say any offensive. That's the decision of the chair at this point. I realize it. I forwarded it directly to his email so that he would know after I got it. And I'm just I'm not here full time, so I have an autoimmune problem with family members. We're trying to keep some distance. COVID's kind of like, trying to avoid it. Yeah. But anyway, I did forward it on to the chair. I found it inappropriate for him to say that it's offensive because mine was not. I don't even understand that. I understand that. And I don't control the chair. I know you don't. But how do I make that? Where do I go from there? Just let him make a decision? I would see if he would take a comment during the discussion and he would recognize you as the comment. We could have you read it. And it's really, you want me to read it? I'm just giving you the option that that could be an opportunity. I just wanted it read in. Right. That could be an opportunity. So I appreciate what you've done. We've talked to you on the phone. Anyway, I've tried to send you all the every time you want. No, I know. I appreciate it. I've been trying to avoid that. You may ask him. I would say the recording's still on, so if you want to take that up with him before it starts.
I was wise. Is it a letter that you wrote? Not emails, I mean letters.
Pace, Kendall Pace.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. 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 Okay, I see. Yeah, I do have your right. Okay. Well, okay. What I will do is let me just read through it one more time. Make sure that I feel confident. No, I just
I know how to cuss, but I don't.
I just don't see it as a fair analogy that every townhouse development is on site to look at, not family family. I guess I just don't see that. That's your opinion. I just think it's a poor characterization. But I will. Yeah, but I just think it's offensive to people that live in, to be honest with you. I think some of these comments are offensive to people that live in the townhouses. No, a whole lot worse. Things that were said. No, I did not say anything about anybody cussing. Yes. No, some of their comments. Well, I'll let the people decide, right? Thank you very much. If I could have everyone's attention, Mr. Pace, Kendall Pace, brought to my attention, he had sent in by an email. He asked if I would read it because I had said I didn't want to read these in because I found some of the comments offensive. So he asked me if I would read it, and I just spoke with him, and I personally feel some of the comments are offensive to people that live in townhomes. And although his is probably the mildest of all the ones we got, but I'm not going to read it because of the lack of the time that we've already spent. But these will be available to look at it. I didn't say that he cussed in there. I didn't say he did anything like that. But it will be posted with the minutes and everyone can take a look at those. So
I'll give it a minute and say something.
Mike,
public hearing is closed.
Michael,
Yes.
this is Brian. Mr. Pace has had nothing against Mr. Pace, but he's had chance to verbally share his feelings and his understandings at the hearing. And he's done it also in writing in an email. And so I think he's been given the benefit of the doubt that he has done, he shared his opinions and that they're understood, that we understand it as a commission. That's kind of my feelings about anything else coming in.
Thank you, Brian.
Can I make a suggestion? Yes. In order to, you'd have to have a motion from a second and a vote to reopen the public hearing. Otherwise, I think the public hearing is closed.
Okay. Does anyone feel that there needs to be a motion to reopen the public hearing, or do you think that we've done enough?
Michael, this was an email coming in, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And so it's already in the public hearing. We did not read it, but it is part of the public record. Am I correct or not?
That's correct. And we clarified that those will be posted. So unless somebody wants to make a motion to reopen the public hearing to allow Mr. Pace to make comments, we're going to move forward with the public hearing closed.
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
You said that after they spoke, that then we would have time for more questions. Is that when you make a motion?
Wait just a minute.
Oh.
No, give me just a second. Should there be any time remaining, the chair will ask the audience if there is anyone who would like to speak, keeping their comments to 3 minutes. So if they will be, if so, they will be invited to the podium. So, okay. Appreciate your patience with me. Mr. Champlin, if you'd like to come forward.
Well, I could take a long time and try and talk about each issue, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try and just talk about the positive things that I see for this development. And one is, well, Nate Lishman got up and talked about the economic value of having housetops. That's one thing. The other thing is I think last time I was here, when we had our little discussion about prior to this meeting, and I brought up the fact that 70% of the citizens of Utah are priced out of a home. I think that's going to get worse with the interest rates going up and stuff like that. So I think we can see a need for high density. I think the key to density, though, is quality. If you need to build something that is good quality, and I think that the city is trying to do things to assure the fact that there is quality in these high density projects. Can you bring up the drawing of the property there, please? Okay. One of the things about safety is, and traffic and that kind of thing, is this road here is going to come in here and go out onto the highway. And then there's third south over there as well. Those people that live in that subdivision are going to have no need. They might want to go visit people, but they'll have no need to go into those subdivisions to the east of them, because they'll get on the highway, they'll go to Macy's, they'll go to Walmart. Well, let's hope they go to Macy's instead of Walmart, because we don't want Logan to get business, right? But this will actually improve the traffic there and allow, people to move more swiftly and safely, to the places that they need to go.
Where that Grand Road is.
Yeah, well, that just goes along the Ballard Springs on the north side of the Ballard Springs. Yeah, you can see it. It's in the gray, and it's something that the city's requiring to go in there. I had no choice.
I just didn't know exactly where it was.
Okay. One of the positives about having taller buildings is that you can reduce 18 homes per acre is not really that dense when it comes to multifamily. If you go to Logan, 40 units per acre around the university, 30 in their mixed use and stuff like that. So 18 is not really dense. But if you reduce that footprint and go up taller, then you have more opportunities for open space, for the parking that you need, and those kinds of things. One of the big concerns I have for this property is, we, according to the city's desire, we have tried to develop that along the highway so they can get some tax revenue there, tax producing businesses along there. That's one of the things we're trying to accomplish. And I just don't think there's going to be a demand for commercial that will continue to go beyond that point into that property. I've said these things before, but mid-sized boxes are non-existent nowadays. You just don't see mid-sized boxes. This piece is too small for a big box store like Target or something like that. It's too small. So this is just an effective use of the property. Now, as what we have here between this property and the citizens to the east is we have a huge buffer there with the 55 and older which we are building ourselves. And I have no worries about selling this project to people that are 55 and older. I would say I have built over almost, I think, 14, 15 communities of these 55 and older here in the valley. And I would say that at least half of them are by apartments, right next to apartments. And I thought that would be a big deterrent to people, that they wouldn't want to live there. It didn't turn out to be the case. And so I'm not nervous about building this 55 and older next to that complex, because first of all, I'm going to put my buildings on the west side of that property, and I'm going to create even a bigger buffer for them so they won't be jammed up right against those, you know, those bigger buildings. And so we put a lot of thought into this. I have owned apartments. I continue to own apartments, student rentals. I know about the voyeurism and all that stuff. It exists, but it exists everywhere. And I've owned a hotel, Hampton Inn, one previous to the one that exists. It's not a location for a hotel, I can tell you that right now. So anyway, just random thoughts, but I just want to commit to the city that if they do improve this, we haven't presented our plan, but we're going to present a nice plan that meets the city standards, that has playgrounds, that has whatever is required by the city for that purpose. And you know, that's what we intend to do there. And I don't know if you guys have got any questions or anything like that, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chancellor.
Okay.
Okay. By a show of hands, so I'll have it get an idea. Is there any citizens that would like to make a short, brief comment at this time? 3 people. If you limit it to 2 minutes, I'll give you each a chance. So Natalie, if you'll come forward. If you'll state your name again.
I'm Natalie Hortonson, and I just wanted to throw it out there to the builder and to you guys, you know, would you do more than the bare minimum, like than what they require in terms of green space or playgrounds or those kinds of things? And the other question is, I mean, would it be considered for medium density? Does it have to be high density? I know that we need homes, people need homes, but you can make them nicer. And I think medium density is townhomes, is still townhomes. It can be, as far as I understand. So could we, I mean, do we have to go high density? Why do we have to go all the way to the max? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, can I make some comment?
Yes, I would ask you to come back to the microphone if or I tell you what if we are, well, let's go ahead and do it that way.
I just want to say,
anybody's questions.
I'll ask Scarlett a question. Isn't the mixed use a higher density than this?
Yes.
Is it what is it, 24 units?
Yes.
Okay, so it isn't the max. It's right in the middle. Anyway.
Thank you. Holly Lewis,
My question is, would the builders want
please
this,
state your name one more time.
Holly Lewis,
Thank
would
you.
the builders want this next to their homes? That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Dan Mazzaro, please.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Champlin, for your perspective, especially speaking about the road that's connected to the highway and coming in, because that's one of my biggest concerns, because I'm right there right now. And the way our neighborhood is right now, it's like the entire neighborhood is the playground. Kids are out on bikes all the time, and And it's just a lot of fun. And I mean, anybody will tell you that's one of the best neighborhoods in Providence. So I understand your perspective that coming through on that road, like really, yeah, there's not much motivation for anybody else to go anywhere else unless you live directly in this neighborhood. My concern, and this might be pure conjecture, is I've heard musings of talks of 480 West eventually connecting through into the high school. And so I guess my comment / question is the city planner thinking of, okay, if medium or high density does go into this location, what's the future plan to mitigate any potential connection issues? Because if the road does go through the high school and we now have a major highway access point that's going to a high school, those will be the two main inlets, is that light down the road or right next to Ballard Springs, coming in off the highway and then shooting over to Ridgeline. That would be just my concern, is what's if high density does go there, what's the plan for what's going to be immediately south of us?
I might make a quick comment on Scarlett, but at this point, the Cache Metropolitan organization, which is it's the metropolitan area of the county. They have a plan that supersedes cities, so that they plan for that. So interconnecting roads between cities would go oftentimes through that, especially corridor. And yes, you're correct. It is planned for a corridor to go down to the highway. So that is true. By them, that's the plan they've set up.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Does anybody have any questions here for Mr. Champlin or the staff? Okay, I'm gonna close that portion. I want to make a couple of comments in regards to a lot of the things that have been said today, and understand where we're at a little bit, and encourage you citizens to look at a few other things. One of the things is that there was a press release done the first part of May at the county, Cache County. It talks about Cache County added approximately 20,500 people during the 2020 census, and Utah was the fastest growing state in the nation, increasing by 18.4%. Of the new residents in Cache County, 17,500, 86% were internal, children of current residents. Cache County has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, which is causing a housing crisis. It's one of the reasons for it. Logan was ranked by the Milken Institute as the #1 best performing small city in the country. And they also ranked them, so they're #1 as the small city. And our county, just a beautiful place, but we're number 178 in providing affordable housing. Now, a couple of comments also were that, well, let me share a couple other facts. One of them is, I don't know if you're aware that just within the last probably 30 days, the county organized a housing crisis task force. That's what this announcement was. And it has brought together probably the best minds of everybody down in the county area. We have professors from the university, administrators. We have mayors from almost every community in the valley. We have city officials. We have state officials. We have some federal officials. There's probably a group of more than 45 to 50 individuals that serve on this task force that meet probably weekly. And I would recommend that you go to the website. They've addressed these questions. They've looked at what we have to do. Every county is facing this. Over the last few years, we have had, the county needs to build about 1,200 homes a year to stay with the increase in population. Over the past 2, 3, 4 years, that number has fallen dramatically because of COVID and other things. So we currently, as we continue to progress with jobs and opportunities and our children staying in the valley instead of being forced to leave to find jobs, we are several thousand homes, units behind to just stay current. The next thing you have is a couple of other facts from the county. From February 2021 to April 2022, the estimated average monthly mortgage payment for an average home in Cache County increased 64%, from $1,454 to $2,390. Why? From February 2021 to February 2022, the average home price in Cache County increased 38%, from $312,500 to $430,000. Then the bidding wars all start, which continued to drag those prices up even higher. From January 2022 to April 2022, the average mortgage interest rate increased 40%, from 3.8 to 5.31. How do you help young people that we're trying to have be able to stay and continue the family spirit and everything else? And the number of individuals, young families and individuals graduating from USU, and to stay here, to keep that brain power here and that opportunity. 66% of the owner-occupied households and 94% of the renter-occupied households in Cache County make 75% or less of income necessary to afford a home. Basically, 2/3 of the people right now in the county could not afford to buy the house that they're in, of homeowners, because of the price and so forth right now. The jumps have been tremendous. The other point that I would make is individuals have spoken about, well, we've talked with everybody in our neighborhood. We've talked to this, we've talked to that, these individuals. I would encourage you to go to the public records. I did, because as I spoke and talked to individuals in these units, that's the other thing, to some degree, I was offended by some of the comments sent in and so forth of how they talk about people living in $300,000 townhouses. I think it's very inappropriate. But I would recommend that you go online and look, who owns those townhouses? 75% of these townhouses over here, I'm told by individuals, are rentals. 75% of them are rentals. Now, who owns them? I recommend that you go to the county, you look up the LLCs that bought them, and you'll find your neighbors. Your neighbors in Garden Drive, Meadow Lane, up on the bench, who borrowed money from the value of their homes and bought townhouses. And it probably doubled the price on some of them if they bought them pre-construction. So, you know, they may not be here, some may be here, that said, you know, we don't want this, but actually some of them do. When you look at the survey results for affordable housing, I believe it's, Brian, you correct me if I'm wrong, was it like 70% of people? Yeah, affordable housing. 73% of the people here in Providence said, we need to do more and we want affordable housing.
What question is that?
It's not
valid though. If you only have 200 people on a survey, then you have
Okay,
a vote.
then why didn't everybody participate in the survey?
That's not a valid.
Okay, then why didn't, as citizens, concerned citizens, did you not participate in the survey? Anyway.
But as a concerned citizen, that's why I voted.
Okay, voted for Proposition 1 to stop that annexation of that one piece of property over there.
But I feel as a citizen, if this was put up to a vote again, it would fail incredibly. And so I almost feel like I've wasted my time coming here because your mind's already made up.
No, that's
And
not right.
I feel this is
We haven't even talked about it. So
because
first
you
of
have
all,
leaders who won't do the will of the people.
first of all, understand, all we do as planning commission is recommend.
Is it going to be off the recommendations of what's been supplied here today? Or
Well,
are we?
They're going to listen to what was said here. Your elected officials on the city council and your mayor watch this, the recording of these. They listen to them, they read the minutes. And so you should be able to talk with them. They will make the final decision. What we look at is on this piece of property, is there a need? What could we do? What are the options? Does he have a legal right to do something? Is all the code and all the things met? What do we think is in the best interest? What do we think for our city? That's our responsibility. So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we will talk amongst ourselves and then we'll see if they can entertain a motion. So.
To clarify, you were looking at question 11.
Yes, public support. Well,
this isn't support. This would, I just want to make sure you've read that correctly. This is indicating the perception of Prop 1 that higher density housing doesn't make housing affordable. 61% believe that it does not make housing more affordable. That, I mean, that's the perception. These are perception things. This is not a statistical sample. This is a question voluntarily answered. I don't want it to be interpreted to be more than it is. So anyway, no statistics.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We'll open it up amongst the members. Brian, you have any comments?
I'm not getting everybody's mic clean and clear, so I'm not hearing your discussion right now, but I do have a concern, not concern, but I have a suggestion. I'm not sure multifamily high is the way to go here. We've got two properties, both on the west side. One of them is actually owned by Champlin. That's a single family high. Okay, the Champlin development. Why couldn't it be single family high? Or if you look at the Fox Hollow, which is the other one on the west side that sits way over on the 3rd South, that one is multifamily medium. If we were talking about one of those to continue that zoning into this area, I would feel much more comfortable. I can see the reasoning. The mid-sized boxes aren't going to work. It's going to be the small boxes or the big boxes. Do we need to provide? That said, my feeling is that we should entertain the idea that maybe it shouldn't be multifamily high, but I'm not against multifamily medium or single family high, or, just something that's already in the area. That said, the other point I wanted to make, and I'm sorry, it's slipped my mind, but it'll come back to me any second now. The housing issue, I don't think is a strong point for anybody to stand on. $300,000, a mortgage to go along with a $300,000 townhouse is not affordable housing. It's not entry-level housing. If people cannot afford a home in Providence, they need to look elsewhere. I've got some neighbors, their children have decided to move to Trenton. They can get a bigger piece of land at a lower price. More power to them. I left this valley and came back 15 years later, but I left it because there were no jobs here, none at all. And the economy was, in the tank. So just because there's no jobs here, or just because there's not housing for people here, doesn't mean that Providence needs to accommodate and make ruin, in my mind, the city with affordable housing. I think a lot of the concepts involved with affordable housing are incorrect. That's my feelings, and I'm listening to every word you say.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. Tyler, what are your thoughts? You live in one of the townhomes.
I live in I disagree. I appreciate the public comment, but I respected the vote on Prop 1. I live in Vineyard, and I know everyone hates my neighborhood, but I think that multifamily housing is needed somewhere, and we shouldn't outright just say it's bad. And I feel like there's some undertone language, but to me, that's not relevant here. What is relevant to me is I played with the parcel viewer and calculated the approximate acreage of our commercial highway district in the city, and we have 68.3 acres of commercial highway district, which is whether the market conditions right now allow for it to be developed or not. That's at some point in the future. There's going to be a lot more people to the south of here who are going to want to stop and get something to eat or get something in the way in and out of work. And that is our prime land to be developed, and it's part of our master plan to keep that as commercial highway district, and to give up 8, 10, whatever it ends up being of our 68.3 commercial highway district acres is a really tough pill to swallow for me. So as it stands for me, if I were to vote on, I would not vote to change this or vote to recommend to the council to change it. My preference would be to keep it at commercial highway district because that is precious commercial land for us. And I empathize that the market conditions right now would make a different zone more palatable for development. But I'm here to protect Providence's general plan, or our master plan, which was to have that prime area along the highway be our best commercial land.
Do you want any comments?
No, I happen to agree with what he said. I looked at the survey and it is not a scientific survey, but question 13 indicated the majority were the most responses like the feel of the rural feel of Providence. Question 17. They indicated that citizens' concerns were growth, planning, and zoning. Question 16, they did not want high-density housing. Question 12, they wanted less density and more open space. But all of those factors aside, as I thought about this, the parcel was zoned commercial highway, and we have a limited amount of it, and I think we need to keep a limited amount of what we have open. That's what the general plan. I was not part of the general plan, but I know the amount of work that went into the general plan, and the general plan is to look down the road 10 and 20 years and anticipate it. And so, if I had to vote, I would vote in favor of a motion to make a recommendation to the city council that they not approve a rezoning.
Thank you. Bob?
I have a question for Scarlett. Are we locked in to the multi-family high for recommendation?
That's what's been applied for.
That's what's been applied for, however. This is a legislative decision that the council gets to make, and they can look at whatever they want to look at that point in time. So no, I would say you're not locked in. If I could have 1 minute though to quickly stick up for the planning commission a bit here and help the audience understand. State code gives some directive in 10 9A 102 that I think is important, and the purposes of the chapter, which is 10 9A, which is the land use code, they're to provide for the health, safety, and welfare, to promote the prosperity, improve the morals, peace, good order, comfort, convenience, and aesthetics of each municipality and each municipality's present and future inhabitants and businesses. And a lot of times that last little part gets left out about the future inhabitants and the businesses. And so I think it's important. You're also supposed to protect the tax base. So it's okay to consider the importance of a commercial area versus housetops. I mean, that's part of the job. Secure economy in governmental expenditures, foster the state's agriculture and other industries, protect both urban and non-urban development, protect and ensure access to sunlight for solar energy devices, provide fundamental fairness in land use regulation, facilitate orderly growth and allow growth in a variety of housing types, and protect property values. And then it goes on to list all of the different ways that you can look at that, uses, densities, open spaces, structures. I'm not going to read all of that, but I do think it's important that everyone understand your job is to plan for the future. We know what we're doing right this immediate second. Your job is to look out for the future and help what we're doing right this immediate second to work towards that end. And the state code is pretty clear on the different things you need to consider when looking at that. So I commend any planning commission and city council for that matter, because it's a tough job when you have people looking you in the eye and they're frustrated, and I can get why they're frustrated. I've watched a lot of people be frustrated over the years, and I totally understand where that's coming from. But I know there was a comment made about they wished that we wouldn't bow to the state code, not in tonight's meeting, but that comment has been made, and that's just not an option for us. The state code's the state code. So that's what we live by.
Thank you.
Particularly under the oath that we took. We
Need to lean
indicated,
up, Joe.
I said particularly the oath we took when we were sworn in. We said we would abide
Yeah,
by the laws of the state of Utah.
yes.
So. And I just want to make a comment. Someone, and I don't know who it was, that made a comment that it felt like they wasted their time being here. I think you haven't wasted your time. I think we listened and tried to listen very strongly. And I think you're taking a guess at how this is going to come out in terms of a recommendation, and you should wait until the meeting's ended to conclude that.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody, any other comments or questions for Ryan, Scarlett, or Ty? No?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we recommend that the city council deny the applied rezone of parcel 03-002-0007, which would be a partial rezone from commercial highway to multifamily high.
Second.
Motion by Tyler Riggs and a second by Joe Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Brian, what is your?
He's on mute. He's an aye, he says.
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, we did now.
Aye.
I would thank you very much. I would recommend also that everybody, I know there were questions tonight. I tried to make a list of them. One of them was about the schools and the increase in the number of children. I recommend you get on the school board, Cache County School Board, look at those things. There's discussions right now about additional schools, another school being built, another elementary school. There's other things underway because everybody is seeing these things and we're trying to do what we can. I know the thing about this, the Cache County and the task force that was assembled and so forth is to try to get ahead of what the state is going to tell us we have to do. That's a big part of it. So we appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate everything everybody said, most of what everybody said. And but thank you very much.
Contact the city council. Their
Contact them.
emails and their contact information is on the website. And you have a chance to coordinate with them and give them your thoughts, whether it's through a letter or arrange time with them. I think they're generally happy to meet with constituents.
Because as Joe mentioned, they may not open certain things up for public comment. So I would recommend that you put your emails in or your letters. Also, I would talk to your representatives, Casey Snyder, and who's the other one? Who's the other one?
Mr.
Chris Wilson.
You should talk to your representatives, Representative Casey Snyder, Senator Chris Wilson, as well as the governor's office.
Yeah, the more you can do, because all of that's going to have a big impact. Like Scarlett said, we have to do what they tell us that we have to do.
And attend city council meetings.
And attend the meetings and attend the city council. Thank you. We're going to move on now to action item number 3, a Providence City Center amended site plan. The Providence City Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on an amended site plan for lot 1 and 2 of the Providence City Center mixed-use development. Scarlett, if you ready, if you can give us a rundown on that.
So you're going to get real familiar with amended plats in the next few weeks because that's the hot topic of the month right now. There's 2 more in the already applied for. They're just waiting for their engineers to catch up. What happens when a lot of times developers, city, everybody does their very best to create a plan that's going to work really well. And then as people come in and start to utilize the property, they realize that maybe they need to make some changes. And that's what's happening here. This is in the Providence City Center development that's right over here, directly behind Macy's. And it involves the 2 most north lots. The furthest north is lot 1. That's the one where the townhomes will be developed. And then the next lot is part of the commercial element of that mixed use. And what they want to do, and this one is a 2-step process because they do have a public utility easement in there that goes around, that surrounds their property. So to adjust that lot line, they actually have to relocate that utility easement, which will require city council action.
Okay.
They want to, and David Knight is here, the applicant, so you can ask questions of him as well. So they want to adjust their line to the north. They want to increase the size of lot 2 and decrease the size of lot 1. And I have to say, I follow the state code, and I looked really hard to figure if there was a way to not have to do amended plats, to be able to do it by deed, if it was the owner, if it's the same owner. And I just don't think there's a way. It just keeps referring you right back to follow 10-9A-608. So that's what we're doing. The findings of facts that we looked at, we do look at Utah Code, Chapter 10 or Title 10, Chapter 9A, Part 6 for subdivisions. We look at our general plan. We look at our master plans, the park trails, recreation, the transportation system. And I also looked up the terms in 10-9A-103 that talk about lot line adjustment and municipal utility easements. I looked up subdivision amendments. Some subdivision amendments require a public hearing. This one does not, because the petition is seeking to adjust the lot lines of adjoining lots if the fee owners of each of the adjoining properties join in the petition. And since it's the same owner at this point, it works. And then I also put the definition of public utility easement. The conclusions, we have enacted ordinances and that allow us to operate under Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, Section 6. We look at the general plan. This amendment is still consistent with the general plan because it's still, they're not changing the zone or anything. They're just adjusting the lots. It does seek to relocate a public utility easement. There is one thing that I'm not clear on, and I haven't got a good answer. I've got to contact the county. Municipal utility easement is a relatively new term in state code. So a lot of our easements prior to having this term are public utility easements. And I'm just not sure exactly how those two play together. So to err on the side of caution, we're erring that we'll follow the steps of the municipal utility easement, because it's definitely not a protected public utility easement, which is completely different. But a public utility easement and a municipal utility easement are very close and very similar. If I find out something different between now and the time it has to go to city council, then that will do that. But at this point, that's what we're doing, is we're relocating that public utility easement, which may also be a municipal utility easement, and adjusting the lot line. And then there are no public utilities within that easement, and it is the city council that will adjust that municipal utility easement. That is under their purview. So our conditions is, there's two things that if you do choose, you'll have to do it conditional, because it does say that you can approve the final plat if there is good cause and no public street or municipal utility easement has been vacated or amended, you would have to, if you choose to approve this, it will have to be with the condition that whatever that the city council action be followed through. So, and then, so you would need to explain why you think the adjustment makes sense. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, providence, city rules, laws, codes, ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and to conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So that's our report. It does have a copy of the application, and it has the petition that the city council will consider on the utility easement. So,
Anybody, any questions for Scarlett?
Yes, Scarlett, you're talking about, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Great.
Oh, just look at you, huh? There we
It's
go.
just, okay, so
Probably
Scarlett,
can't see that I'm now looking at you, but I am.
you're talking, hi, you're talking about we're talking about the public utility easement needs to be moved. How much property are we moving from lot 1 into lot 2? How much property there?
Oh, I don't know that actual amount. Perhaps the developer can answer that question for us.
Okay. I think that's a great place to go.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Scarlett. We'd like to invite the developer up.
My name is David Knight.
Thank you.
So, Ben, thank you, Scarlett, for that great rundown of what we're doing, just a simple boundary adjustment. To answer Brian's question, I think it's about 2/10 of an acre. And all we're doing with the public utility easement that's being vacated is just moving that to now follow the new lot line. Okay. So that's the only reason that's moving, is because the lot line is being adjusted with the boundary adjustment, and we're just moving the public utility easement to match the new lot line.
It appears from, there's two different drawings on here, two different plats. One is the bottom one is the original. So it looks like it's going from, lot 2 goes from 0.73 acres to 0.96 acres.
Correct, yeah, lot 2 is increasing in size, which is the commercial side of it. Lot 1 is the residential side, and that is decreasing.
So this is Brian. Is there any change in the plans on the amount of square footage, livable square footage, or commercial square footage on the lots involved?
Great question. There is not. It does not affect any of the square footage percentages within the mixed use zone. What it does allow is additional parking on the commercial side of it, but none of the building or any of that is being affected by this.
Okay.
This may be a dumb question, but this doesn't have any impact on adjacent property owners, right?
No, as of now, we own both property. That lot 2 is under contract.
Even to the west.
What's that?
To the west also.
To the west.
South. Lot 2.
I mean, that would be the Macy's lot, and that's a completely different parcel, not affected.
Yeah, like I say, it might have been a dumb question.
Yeah, no, great question. Yeah, no, this is only affecting within this Providence City Center development and just these 2 lots.
Is the adjustment needed because of the needs of the tenant or the prospective purchaser?
It works for both. Yeah, the residential side, and the residential side has already been approved by the Planning Commission with this adjustment in mind. And then now for the commercial side of it, it just works for both parties.
Oh, help me out. We need to find good cause. What's the good cause?
Additional parking, obviously, for the commercial side of it. We're reducing the residential side and increasing the commercial side within the mixed use zone. So it's going to allow for additional parking to accommodate the commercial use.
What does it do to lot 1?
It reduces it, but it does not have any effect. We've still got, and we've met the new design code that was talked about earlier in that 2-hour discussion that we got to listen to, which was great. We have originally, this plan was actually approved under the previous plan. We have actually voluntarily went under the new plan because of I shouldn't say disaster, but the feelings of the gateway development that exists across the street. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't, fall into that same trap or make those same mistakes. So we voluntarily moved into the new code. So it'll all be done under the updated code within the residential site.
Anybody, any other questions?
I've actually got a question for Scarlett, if I could. Sure. Is this required, the good cause finding, is it required for any lot line adjustment residential, or is it just commercial?
Well, it's the requirement in state code that to adjust the lot line, you need to find good cause. So whether it's residential or commercial or a mix, it's just part of that little step.
I guess my question would be, does additional parking fall within that?
It supports the ability for a business in our community to contribute to the sales tax base. So I would say yes.
Anything else?
Can I clarify something a little bit? They reduced the number of units, residential units. So they don't need as much parking as was originally required when they changed when they came to you and asked if they could be considered under the new mixed use code that went in, then that they went from 60 to 32
to 30 units.
To 30.
So, yeah, and then that's kind of what spurred this change too, because now we're going from roughly 60 units down to 30 units to meet the new design standards. Obviously, we've got extra space on the residential side that can be utilized on the commercial side.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Anybody comments or any other questions? All right. We feel comfortable that we would meet the requirement that it would show good cause, like a commercial part, bringing that up and not really affecting lot line. So it would enable this to work for commercial spot.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion.
Finding that this proposal meets conditions of good cause for commercial benefits of the city, I recommend, or I make a motion that we approve the Providence City Center amended site plan to take action on decreasing the size of lot 1 and increasing the size of lot 2 of the Providence City Center mixed use development, subject to the findings of facts, conclusions, and conditions, conclusions of law conditions in the staff report.
Second.
And well, hold on, and subject to the approval of the city council,
subject to the
following through on what they need to do.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Tyler Riggs, a second by Bob Perry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to go on to item number 4. The Planning Commission will review, discuss, and may take action on a request to amend the preliminary site plan for Lot 4 of Providence City Center located at 73 South Gateway Drive. The applicant is asking for a modification to the front facade architectural features and the 5-foot landscaping buffer. We had a public comment by Matt Clark.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You okay?
Yeah.
All right. Scarlett, if you would, please.
Okay, we're in the same subdivision. We're just now, instead of being on the very north side, we're on the very south end.
Thank you.
When the original subdivision was approved, the developer did what they were supposed to, and they showed the building envelopes because since it's a mixed use, you are the folks that get to weigh in on landscaping and things like that. If you turn to page 2 of the staff packet, that illustration at the top shows shows the landscaping and a tentative design for a building to fit. One of the things in the city code that is required of a professional office building. And that's the intended use for this lot, is a professional office building. And it shall require at least 15% of the total lot to be landscaped. A 10-foot wide minimum landscaped area shall be provided around the entire building, with the exception of where loading docks, ramps, etc. are located. Up to 5 feet of the said 10-foot minimum may be sidewalk. And you can see that in this illustration, it's on page 2, the white with the black speckles in it, that's the sidewalk. The surrounding area there with all the trees, that's the landscaped area. When this building came in, they wanted to do some interesting things architecturally. And so the next illustration is of their proposal. Christian Wilson is here. He's the designer for this, and he can explain it better. We also have Randy Nem, the contractor, is here on this project as well. State code again gives the municipality the power to enact all ordinances, resolutions, and rules, and may enter into other forms of land use control and development agreements that the municipality considers necessary or appropriate for the use and development of land within the municipality, including ordinances, resolutions, rules, restricted covenants, easements, and development agreements governing uses, density, open space, structures, building, and so forth. I'm not going to read them all. The mixed use district was established to encourage the transition between zones and to stimulate economic development by providing unique planning environment that combines retail, commercial, office, and residential development in a pedestrian-friendly manner. The district encourages creative development and site design. Then I'm going to skip down a little bit. The Planning Commission shall be the land use authority. This is from our city code. State code allows the city legislative body to assign land use authority responsibilities. And in Providence City, the Planning Commission shall be the land use authority for approval of all development proposals in the MX district. All exterior construction visible from the adjacent properties or public streets must also be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. So that's why you get to see these from the get-go. The next one talks about the design standards. The standards for public improvement shall be governed by applicable laws and ordinances. Oh, excuse me, skip. The standards for area coverage, density, yard requirements, parking, and screening for MX districts shall be governed by the standards of the residential, commercial, or industrial zoning districts most similar in nature and function to the proposed MX district uses. We don't have any industrial zones right now, but we do have commercial, and we have commercial site plan in our code. We have a commercial site plan development code, and we also have residential code. And this project is being built under the newest residential for multifamily. And so we're looking at the commercial code. It's our commercial code that requires that 10 feet buffer strip around the building, 5 of which can be landscaped. The mixed use code also calls out the treatment of building mass, materials, and exterior finishes shall create an aesthetically pleasing building and site that is in character with proportions of other surrounding developments. Proposed developments shall be designed with a common theme. The use of the theme in a proposed development shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission. The landscaping shall comply with the landscaping requirements in the commercial district and the multi-family standards, except as approved. Oh, I missed it. D, sorry. Except as approved by the Planning Commission in the process of reviewing an MX district. And I'm sorry, rooftop shouldn't be on there. That's the reason this is here. They want to come and they want to look at perhaps a change to that landscaping a little bit, and you can actually make an exception that way. So the conclusions, we have enacted, the City Council has enacted ordinances and rules and regulations that the city considers necessary or appropriate for the use and development of land within the city. Lot 4 is part of the Providence City Center subdivision, a mixed-use subdivision with residential and commercial components. The procedure, the Planning Commission is the land use authority for approval of all development proposals in the MX district and all exterior construction visible from adjacent properties or public streets. The design standards, I already reviewed that one with you. The Planning Commission and the governing body may grant an exception when they find that exceptions encourage a desirable living environment and are warranted in the terms of the total proposed development or unit thereof. And then in the architectural design, again, it talks about the treatment of building mass and materials and exterior finish, creating an aesthetically pleasing site that is in character with the proportions of the surrounding developments. And on the landscaping, we've talked about that as well, that it needs to comply with our commercial landscaping, except as approved by the Planning Commission in the process of reviewing an MX district development. The proposed design does not meet the 10-foot wide minimum landscaped area around the building. So here are the conditions. If the Planning Commission chooses to approve the amended site plan, they must state their findings for the following. The amendment encourages a desirable living environment. The amendment is warranted in terms of the total proposed development or unit thereof, and the amendment creates aesthetically pleasing building site that it is in the character and the proportions of the other surrounding developments. So can't just say we're going to accept those three things. You have to do like you did the good cause and say why you think it falls in those three categories. And then again, our general statement of condition that the applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. Approval by the city of any application or paperwork submitted does not alleviate the owners and/or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. So just for heads up on how the process worked, after you approve those site plans on the multifamily and the commercial district and the mixed use, then the commercial, as each individual lot comes in, the administrative authority looks at that and makes sure that they're following the site plan that you approved. And that's where we came across this little glitch that I will let the developers explain. As we were going through our process and talking with the developer, then we came to the part about the landscaping is not quite what it's required to be. So I'll let them take over.
All right, thank you. I invite you to come on up.
My name is Christian Wilson. I'm the architect working with Matt, who's the owner, and the contractor, Randy Nim. Side note, this is kind of funny. I'm from Providence. I grew up here 50 years ago, and I moved in, my family, low-income housing, Furman Drive. Nobody wanted us there. But thank you for letting us move there. It was a nice little community to live in, but nobody wanted us. So anyway, side note.
How did the WOW building come out? I'm interested in that.
They needed that.
You thought that much about your design?
They must have liked it. Yeah.
We're hoping that you look at it like, wow, good building.
So I draw stuff, so I have to step away from the microphone, but I'll try to speak as loud. Yeah. What? Right here, we've got about a foot here and here. And keep in mind, this right here is a loading dock, and there's power panels here. So it's really only this spot and this spot where there's be about a foot. And that's a foot there, so that's 6 feet. And then from there to there is actually 9 feet. Okay, not quite the 10 feet. But if you go look at from the perspective, I mean, it's part of this. In here, I mean, we're going to put as much landscaping as we can in here, but there's a little bit here and a little bit there. Like I said, there's a garage door that opens here, power panels, can't have plants in front of the power panels. So really, we're only talking about here and here. And I guess what I'm saying is the only way I can make this meet the code is I've got to take those bump outs and I've got to flatten them and make it on both sides. So this becomes a flat wall and that becomes a flat wall. And so where I'm going, you do have the authority here, like Scarlett said. Do you want to see a flat wall or do you want to see landscaping? What would you rather see there?
The landscaping that we're talking about not being there is just a small amount, right?
Yeah, it's just a small, it's just in those two spots there. All the way around, it meets all the requirements. It's just a couple spots there, but in order to make it so it meets in those few spots, I'm gonna have to take the bump outs out.
You can't make the bump smaller.
Well, I've got to push them in order to meet because I've got like 3 feet on each one, so I've got to get that 6 feet, and so I've got to. It's basically, yeah, I'm just going to take the bump outs out. So you get to decide. Do you want to have bumps or do you want to have? And it's all based on these spots. So I'm going to say, let's not throw away the baby with the bathwater. I mean, it's going to look better if we do that. I'm just, you do have the authority to do that. I'm just asking, begging you, please. I think it's going to look better, but I can make it more box if you'd like.
Well, if we have the authority to be able to make an exception, then we have to look at, if we make an exception, are we going to be doing that? You know, others will be able to point and say, well, you did.
You could possibly, but you would probably go back to, but they made it look interesting too.
Yeah. Well, and so if we.
There was a trade-off.
Absolutely. So for the architectural design, take a look at the building, we made that exception. That's the reason. Anybody questions?
This is that side of the building is facing in. It's not
facing out. Yeah, the other side. Yeah, this is so. This right here is the back side of trailer or practice supply. Yeah, so it's not. You're looking at the back side of commercial buildings, like we were talking about. Yeah. No, it doesn't affect any of the street views, and really this view is not bad. It's just in a few spots. But yeah, I just need to know which direction you would like me to go.
This is Brian. Can we make the building any smaller?
We can, but that would be the owner's decision. But we've maximized it. Please understand right now, building costs are very, very high. And in order for these guys to make it pencil out, we had to maximize it. We've maximized the parking. We are exactly in the parking. We are exactly on the building, square footage. And these guys, please understand, they're also looking at maybe doing another building. They're growing very fast and they need as much space as possible. So, yeah.
Anybody, any other questions?
Other questions?
What's going to be on the inside of the building? Are we talking employees? Are we talking data center? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'll let the owner. All right, I won't take too much.
I'm Matt Clyde, owner of Next Meters, the company that will be occupying the building, and as well as an owner of Wow Cool Building, who's actually building it. Yeah, we're a local company here in Providence. I'm from Cache Valley and just moved here to Providence. I actually live in the Vineyard as well, and appreciate the city, and we've loved being here and working here. We actually occupy a small space just across the street here in this gray building. But yeah, we're growing. We employ about 30 employees today. We build smart utility meters. So we were in the tech industry. We employ software engineers, hardware engineers, firmware, as well as tech support specialists. We're looking at a bright future and are seeing a high growth path ahead. And that's our motivation, for expanding. And we love this area, saw this lot available, and where we're at. And like Christian said, we're trying to maximize the space there, the cost and whatnot. So we're obtained the lot 4 and lot 3, and looking to expand down the road as well. But yeah, this is our first build here, and yeah, we're hoping that we can create something that is beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. And our company has built quite a bit around user experience and beautiful design, and
I think it looks very nice. Yeah, we certainly want the business being in Providence and have you expand and keep growing. Hope the best for that.
Thank you. So appreciate your time.
Anybody, anything else?
Yes.
Slide? Yes.
The building next to it, is that going to be your building also?
Yes, that's what we're.
What's that building?
It's going to be about half the size of this one. Now we're actually the ones under contract for lot 2 that was discussed earlier. As if that proceeds forward, then we could have lot 2 and lot 3. We could actually build a building similar to this one over there. That's for further growth, potentially for, again, more tech support specialists, those who can help beyond, call for answering questions about the meters and products that we develop.
Gotcha.
So like a support staff?
Yeah, very much support. We do take up a lot of space with, again, quite a bit of engineering. We've got large test equipment for testing environmental factors. So putting our equipment through very harsh tests, and it takes up a lot of space. And that's, again, part of the reason for it.
I may have to have you fix the thing that's in my back right now. It's killing me, but anyway, it's a different story.
Will any future buildings be of the same style?
Yes, yeah, we definitely want them to be very consistent and look clean there. We're also, again, the style, we want that to look consistent along with like the townhomes that are coming in right there. We've looked at those, and I know that the design considerations to make sure that they look clean and in place.
Okay, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it.
So basically, we're falling down to either green or
we're changing the design of the building. And how many feet are we talking about? If you can help me just understand that one more time. Did you say a 1 foot area and a 6 foot area?
Well, so yeah, I've got one and so we're at 6 feet total and 9 feet total. Where it bumps back in, okay? But in order for me to make it so it all works along that side, because I've got a bump on both sides, okay? What I've got to do is I've got to take that bump out and squish it in and make it flat is what I've got to do. And so you'll lose this on this side and that on that side in order.
To meet the landscape requirement.
Yeah, to meet the landscape requirement. So do we want to make the building look more interesting or the landscape look more interesting? And it's my opinion, just because I'm an architect, that I think you're going to notice the building more than you will a few bushes down low. But that's my opinion. My landscape. I'm a landscape architect might disagree with me.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody?
I have a couple comments.
Sure.
First, just in the interest of transparency, we'll acknowledge that Mr. Clyde is my neighbor, but we've never discussed this. In fact, I just learned about his business today, and that's awesome. And I think it's amazing that we're able to bring people that start businesses like this into our community. Yeah. And that's one of the very exciting things about Providence going forward, especially with the fiber project and everything. So good stuff there. I would be in favor of this this proposal. I find that the 3 conditions that we were asked to ensure that it meets are met. The amendment encourages a desirable living environment. While I would presume that the work-life balance doesn't require people to actually live there, I think that it is an attractive building and fosters a more greenery and a sense of wellness place. The amendment is warranted in terms of the total proposed development or unit thereof. It sounds like the plans are to have a consistent look of this building facade throughout the development, and that is positive in terms of creating some consistency. And Certainly, the amendment creates an aesthetically pleasing
Can't get it. There it is.
and site that is in character with the proportions or other surrounding developments. So that doesn't seem like it would be out of place with anything else that I've seen already built in the area. And
It's the
again,
commission here.
reiterating that will be consistent with the townhomes and the future buildings.
Thank you. Joe, any thoughts?
No.
Is that a motion, Tyler?
I'm not gonna make any more motions tonight. But if you want to make a motion inclusive of my comments, like I
I
said,
didn't hear half of what you said.
We got to talk to Brian. Looks like you turned the lights off. Are you napping? What's going on?
With us, Brian?
he's on mute.
You guys are incorrigible. I'm listening, I'm watching, the sun has set. This is a reminder not to go too long in this meeting because actually the time has come when we need to make a motion to extend the meeting.
Wrap this one up. I don't
With
know.
that
Okay.
said, I'll make a
I'm very
motion.
happy with what I see. If we need to make let's find more property for this company to come and build more buildings.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll make a motion that we extend the meeting right now because we're at 9 o'clock. Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For 15 minutes
Or less.
or less.
Okay.
I
Can we
make a
entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve. We recommended the city council.
No.
Or
We approve it.
All right. I make a motion that we approve the amended or the changed preliminary site plan for Providence City Center, Lot 4, located at 73 South Gateway Drive, which is seeking a modification to the front facade architectural features and the 5-foot landscape buffer, subject to the conclusions of law, findings of fact, and conditions. And among the conditions, acknowledging that the amendment encourages a desirable living environment by creating an attractive place for employees to come, that the amendment is warranted in terms of the proposed development or unit thereof, and by virtue of it being consistent in enhancing the architecture in consistency with the other buildings that will come in the future, including housing, and that the amendment creates an aesthetically pleasing building and site that is in character with the proportions of other surrounding developments because it fits into the district neighborhood and what will be coming in the future.
I'll second
Motion by
that.
Tyler. We have a second. By Joe Chambers.
No.
Right. Bob Perry.
I second it, Bob Perry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Brian, thank you. The motion passes. We will close the action item portion, and we have no study items. So I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make a motion that we close the meeting.
Sure.
Adjourn.
Second.
We have a second by Joe Chambers. Motion by Bob Perry. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank
Aye.
you.
I make a motion that we bring Rowan back